All right, on Monday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. We've got you for the next 4 hours. A lot of stuff to get into today. Some football, some baseball on the docket, some basketball as well that we may get into throughout the next 4 hours. But we are just a few days away from the NFL draft, so it will be a lot of that with the Chiefs and the 31st pick and different things going on and different people talking and reporting and whispering and screening with smoke all throughout this week. We'll get ready for that and the entire draft being in Kansas City and everybody coming here to our beautiful, lovely town. So we will talk about all of those things throughout the show today. Coming up a little more than an hour from now, we'll talk with Matt Verderame from Sports Illustrated. We'll get his thoughts on this Chiefs draft, what he thinks they should do, will do, what he would like them to do. We'll talk with him about some of those things, the roster overall. And then at noon, we'll talk with Craig Brown, Into the Fountains, intothefountains.substack.com, as we talk with him every Monday at noon. We will do that today as the Royals broke that losing streak. They almost took the series from the Angels, but then 3 batters in a row end up giving up the lead. I feel bad for Taylor Ward. I'm not going to lie. I feel bad for Taylor Ward. He hits a home run. Then Mike Trout hits a home run. Then Ohtani hits a home run. Then everybody on Twitter says, Trout and Ohtani go back-to-back. Trout and Ohtani. Oh, back-to-back home runs from Trout and Ohtani. Well, actually, it's cooler. It was back. I mean, if you're an Angels fan, it was back-to-back-to-back. It was 3 straight. They went from down 1 to up 2. That's pretty cool. Now, no. It was Trout and Ohtani going back-to-back. That's pretty awesome. That's what they do.
It's cool that it was back-to-back-to-back. I would just say it was cool that it was Trout and Ohtani and whoever else did it.
Cool. Yeah. It was not the Royals, even though they hit a fair share of home runs themselves. They homered and ended up losing. They play the Arizona Diamondbacks for 3 tonight, 8:40. They get that series underway. Brad Keller on the mound against Tommy Henry. God, I wish his last name was John. He's making his season debut. He pitched 9 games last year, so 9 games in Major League Baseball. The lefty on the mound. We'll see what happens tonight. But we'll talk with Craig Brown coming up at noon. Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director. He will be our guest coming up at 1 o'clock. Learn Funniest Best, presented by Pyramid Roofing, coming up at about 1:30 or so. And we'll get Mick's thoughts on what this week can look like, could look like. And, of course, we're always wondering what he's going to be doing, right? How's his week going to look? And he's probably annoyed or mad at something about, having to work. Oh, it sucks. I don't get vacation this week, so I got to work. It's going to be annoying. All right, 913-912-4810. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show. Text right out of the gate says, Peter King's latest mock draft has Chiefs taking Osiris Torrance. I think that's a made-up name. Says a guard. Said, so Juwan Taylor would be right tackle, Joe Thuney kicked out to left tackle, ? I don't think the Chiefs take a guard in the first round.
I don't know when the moment was when mock drafts were the closest to the truth, but that has been in the past. That is my theory for this week. This week's projections are smokescreen season.
My theory has been I don't really pay too much attention to the names as much as I pay attention to the positions that are being drafted. That one I can sort of toss out. The guard being drafted in the first round. I can go ahead and toss that one out. A few years ago, Josh, I don't know if you remember the 2020 draft.
Not much about it. I blacked out pretty quickly.
But that draft had a lot of, I think I kept track of like 24 that year. It was too much. But there were too many mock drafts that had the Chiefs taking running back in the first round.
Silliness.
And I mocked those mock drafts.
As you should have. Because it would have been a dumb thing to do.
Literally mocked the figurative mock. And none of those names were Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But they were running backs. And I dismissed them. And especially the week of, there were more that went running back. And I dismissed them. And then they drafted a running back, and I thought, the hell? So the names aren't really something that I pay too much attention to. Although it's some of the same names we hear, same names we're talking about a lot when it comes to tackles and edge and defensive line overall, and certainly wide receivers, some of those sexy positions we know a lot because we see them in college. We don't really see too many of the offensive linemen in college to where, Darnell Wright, I've been watching him for the last 2 years at Tennessee. That's the guy I want. Whereas Marvin Harrison is already being talked about as, is he going to be a top 5? Or could he be like the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft next year? So people will be paying attention to Marvin Harrison this next year. Whoever the bigger, will they be paying attention to Joe Alt at Notre Dame, the left tackle? I think it's kind of cool. It's John Alt's son.
Yeah.
He's the number 1 tackle on the board right now. He could be a top 5 pick. He would have been the number 1 tackle in this year's draft. He's that good. So maybe they'll check up and check in on things like that, but it's really the skill position players, things like that. Defensive ends that are getting after the quarterbacks, and the wide receivers and running backs are what we really know from the college ranks. And so the names sort of are the ones we've been talking about a lot, but positions are what typically sticks out to me. But that one I can go ahead and dismiss because that would be linebacker-esque. It would be the Chiefs taking a linebacker in the first round. To me, is the equivalent of them taking a guard in the first round. That just
you're right.
Not going to happen.
Can't happen. Shouldn't happen. Won't happen. I've been more confident before.
Cannot play with them. Cannot coach with them.
Cannot win with them.
Cannot win with. Can't do it. They will not draft a guard. Mark my words. Mark these words.
You know what? I'm going to say the first 2 days. Mark them. No guards in the first 2 days. Round 6 guard? Cool. Fine.
Unless they're drafting for the Mavericks. Then maybe you might grab a guard in the first couple days of the draft. But not for the Chiefs. I wouldn't do that. So let's get into the show. It's how the show lines up. Matt Verderame, 11 o'clock hour. Craig Brown, noon. Mick Schaefer, 1 o'clock.
And then every day we're going to pick, or every hour, let's pick one position group the Chiefs absolutely cannot draft in the first round. And then eventually one of us will be wrong, and in retrospect, we can go back, and then that person can get taste or whatever.
Kicker in the first round. What do you think? 913-3-810-810. Who should the Chiefs take as their kicker in the first round? So, text comes in, says, I heard some leaks to Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that real quick.
Sure.
This comes from Albert Breer, Monday Morning Quarterback. What you need to know. The Chiefs are one of the few teams that has already made calls about moving up. And while teams that have talked to them feel like, at least for now, Kansas City is seeing if it can find a discounted way to go up the board. Brett Veach and his crew aren't doing it for nothing. Targets? ? I've heard Flowers connected to the Chiefs. Parentheses. He worked out with Patrick Mahomes in Texas last week. In parentheses. The other name was Gibbs. Now, Andy Reid's taken one running back in the first round in 24 drafts as a head coach, and that one, parentheses, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in case people didn't know, in parentheses, hasn't really worked out. Well, that's being generous.
Extreme.
Still, listening to other talk about Gibbs' fit with Mahomes and Reid can be convincing. Quote, I wouldn't want to be in the AFC West, said one NFC exec, if Gibbs winds up in Kansas City, end quote. If the Chiefs stay put, Tennessee wide receiver Jalen Hyatt and Michigan's massive defensive tackle Mazie Smith are two more to watch. So he's hearing the Chiefs are making calls about moving up, and they are trying to find it on a discounted way to move up.
The inverse would be confusing.
Yeah, they're trying to pay more.
Trying to overpay to move up.
Overpay to move up.
Would be a strange thing.
Moving up from 31 to 29. We'll give you next year's first. Move up those 2 spots. Who says no? Who says no? You know what? It's just an offer they can't refuse. 2 firsts to move up 1 spot. Let's do it. No, they're not going to overpay. But what are the parameters of a deal? What if we gave you this? What's the least you'll take? This is what Brett Veach talked about last week. That this week is the week they are contacting, and even last week, they're contacting the teams in front of them. He said 10 to 12 spots. The 10 to 12 teams in front of them they are contacting to see what it would take to move up to that pick.
Just to be clear, that's something Brett Veach said in public that we carried live on these airwaves last
That's right.
week.
Yeah, it wasn't.
That is not a secret.
He didn't whisper it to Adam Teicher off to the side after the press conference was over. Adam, we're talking to teams that are ahead of us right now. They talked to a team that was 17 spots ahead of them before the 2017 draft. And that deal and the parameters of that deal was in place already before the draft started.
Fascinating.
And when Mahomes was on the clock, they executed the deal. Gave him a call. You good to do it? Bills, yep, good to do it. Agreed to it. Great, let's go. Make the deal. So the fact that the Chiefs are calling to look up, to me, is standard operating procedure. I think every single team in the draft is calling other teams to see what it would take to move into that spot. Because teams use different draft charts. If there was one specific value draft chart that the NFL gave out and this was all you used and this was the end-all be-all, then it might be easier just to say, hey, we'll give you this and this. This is going to equal roughly the same amount of points, and we'll make this trade. But there's the Jimmy Johnson. There's the others that I forget the names of them. There's like 4 of them out there. And that's why last year or 2 years ago when Orlando Brown was traded, it was they traded Orlando Brown for a first-round pick. Well, the value really was kind of like what they gave up and draft pick and everything. It was kind of like the 26th pick in the draft is what they ended up. Well, really, when you look at the draft chart, it was kind of like they gave up like the 41st pick in the draft is kind of the value of Orlando Brown, depending on what chart you look at. So you got to do the due diligence. What chart are the Bills looking at? What chart are the Chargers looking at? What chart are the Seahawks looking at? Things like that across the board. This is not a surprise. I would be stunned, shocked, floored, flabbergasted, taken aback if the Chiefs moved up to draft a running back.
Oh, God, I can't even entertain it. This year wouldn't even be the first one taken. They wouldn't even have that luxury.
Yeah.
Bijan's going like 8.
Yeah. Well, they say Jahmyr Gibbs is like Jamal Charles. So if you've wanted to, Josh, you have said you want to see Jamal Charles in this offense.
Yeah,
you now have to live up to your words when you said, I would love to see Jamal Charles in this offense. How much would you love that? Because people say Jahmyr Gibbs is Jamal Charles.
I mean, if he's literally the replicated DNA of Jamal Charles, I think you have to consider drafting him as early as the 3rd round. I agree. This,
in all seriousness, though, real quick.
No, please. I'm using my headphone caps to keep the steam in my ears right now.
Total aside, just
nice
real quick.
Toasty.
If you knew you were getting Jamal Charles at his prime,
literal Jamal Charles
at his prime and healthy, where would you be willing to draft him? For this offense right now.
I mean, I would use the Chiefs' first-round pick on him, for sure. I might move up. I really don't know.
But
if I'm getting like Hall of Fame,
right, but
legit,
exactly,
actually Jamal Charles, absolutely.
Because Edwards-Helaire is also a possibility when there's an unknown.
That's right. The unknown, and also the fact that Jamal Charles, if you asked me that question for, Derrick Henry, I would have to think about it longer. Jamal Charles is a genuine one of one. Mm-hmm. And now I'm sad thinking about how much of his career was wasted on terrible, terrible football teams. Yeah. But no, that's a fair, legit follow-up question. I would move mountains for Jamal Charles. I would not move mountains for Gibbs or much of anything in this chunk. I think you've already done a good job dissecting most of this. But if I could just go down the list. And I like Albert Breer. He does good work. This paragraph to me is not adding anything new to our conversation except the name of a running back who's not even Bijan Robinson. Here's the thing. The Chiefs are already one of a few teams that have already made calls about moving up. As we talked about, we knew this because Brett Veach told us this last week in public. They would like to move up for a discounted price. Again, the inverse would be befuddling. They're looking for a more expensive way to move up the board. All right, cool. Targets, I've heard Flowers connected to the Chiefs. So have I. I've seen him and Patrick Mahomes throwing passes.
They quite literally connected.
They
on a
have
pass.
Connected. We've got visual evidence.
On a pass.
That's not surprising. Gibbs.
Good route.
Go ahead to Andy Reid. One running back in 24 years. Hasn't really worked out. Like you said. Generous, but thank you. Quote, I wouldn't want to be in the AFC West, said one NFC exec, if Gibbs winds up in Kansas City. We heard that after the Chiefs drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We heard that before the Chiefs drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And it's not Chiefs information. The sentence preceding that quote is, still, listening to other talk about Gibbs' fit with Mahomes and Reed can be convincing. I'll fix the typo, listening to others talk about Gibbs' fit with Mahomes and Reed can be convincing to Albert Breer. Breer can be convinced that it's a good fit. Other executives think it's a good fit. This has nothing to do with the Chiefs. You know what I think would be a good fit? Let's go Anthony Richardson in Carolina. They don't, because they're not going to take him there. So what I think doesn't matter. It is a baffling little just like info bomb that is going to derail the next 2 days of Chiefs draft talk. It's so frustrating. And also, I'm going to be sitting at Arrowhead, no less, Thursday night, waiting for 31 to tick down, going, man, there's at least a 5% chance they say, nah, really, this time, though, Arrested Development, has it ever worked for anyone else? No, but it might work out for us. Maybe they'll do it to themselves again, and this is all going to be silly, and I'll put out a written apology to Albert Breer, because there is always a world where something nonsensical happens. But this isn't new. This is not helpful. This is just a repackaged bit of information that ultimately leads to better fits, like Jalen Hyatt. Not that he's my pick of the group, but at least we're talking about position groups that matter to the Chiefs. This is perfect Monday of the draft, smoke bomb, getting someone from the NFC to talk about how much they don't want the Chiefs to draft the running back in the first round when that NFC exec has absolutely no bleeping incentive to tell you the truth.
Boy, I'd really hate to see the Chiefs draft a running back.
Like, how do you not hear it in that voice?
I don't know. Boy, if the Chiefs drafted a running back, that would be pretty awful for everybody. Good luck to the rest of the AFC West because, if they get a running back, I can't imagine how good they would be. They might win the division 7 straight years with the running back. I'd hate to be in the AFC West if you added a running back to the Chiefs. Boy, think about a running back on that Chiefs team. That team might win the Super Bowl.
This is coming from...
Can you imagine?
It's coming from Howie Roseman and a mustache.
it's Staley and a Groucho Marx.
Yes, yeah.
I hate to see that.
Nick Sirianni just put on the big eyebrows and the mustache and the glasses.
That's right. I hate
is that a plastic nose? No. Use this plastic nose to sniff out good scoops.
Is that Humpty Hump? What is going on, man? All right, 913.
I'm more annoyed about the presentation than I am about the running back part today. What's going on?
But like Arrested Development, the show, you don't need to take a running back in the first round because there's always a running back in the banana stand.
There's always a running back in the banana stands.
Always running backs in the banana stand.
And also, like Arrested Development, Chiefs running back to take in the first round shouldn't last more than 3 seasons.
You don't want to bring it back later on?
I don't want the reboot and the remix and any of that. It wasn't worth it. They should have just left it alone. Why did they pick up the 5th-year option?
God, stop. They did not do that, by the way.
No, I meant about Arrested Development.
Yeah, okay.
Good clarification.
In case you're wondering, making this comparison to running back, they did not pick up a 5th-year option from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What would be more surprising, picking up the 5th-year option or trading up to draft Jahmyr Gibbs from Bama? Who might be a phenomenal running back. He might be really good.
Totally could be. I guess it would be more surprising if they picked up the 5th-year option because I just can't, that doesn't make any sense at all.
None whatsoever.
Maybe this time.
None whatsoever. All right, so we know the Chiefs have been connected to wide receivers and everything else. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. CBS Sports has the Chiefs trading back in their mock draft of what teams should do. We'll talk about that, and they gave the parameters of the deal. So we'll talk about that as to, okay, would you rather have this or this? Choose between those two things. And the wide receiver all-pro in the NFL markers for college production. I look at that to give an update on this wide receiver class. Who are the wide receivers that match the college production that are sort of the baselines of wide receivers that turn into all-pros in the NFL? We'll do that next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
I'm a little bit worried about what's going to be coming down on Thursday night. Not from the sky, hopefully, but just from the stage at Union Station. Because if the Chiefs do go one of these unpredictable routes with pick 31, or maybe even move up and create a little bit of extreme weather of their own in the crowd, you know what I mean? Well, that could be a little bit of a problem, but there's no problem with your roof if you've already called Shamrock Roofing and Construction. And if you haven't, well, good news. One call does it all. All around sports, size matters. We got a whole scouting combine to prove that. But when it comes to hail damaging your roof, it actually doesn't. When severe weather arrives and the hail hits your roof, it's time to call Shamrock Roofing and Construction. It wasn't that big. This wasn't football-sized hail. Doesn't matter. That damage could already be done. And the only thing you really need to worry about is protection, and Shamrock has you covered there as well. At Shamrock Roofing and Construction, they have Kansas City's best, ready to draw up the perfect play to keep that roof over your head when you need it as top tier as possible, or if you need to go ahead and have that overhaul, Shamrock can help you with the rebuild as well. Plus, Shamrock offers you peace of mind with a protection plan that'll keep your roof safe for many seasons to come. When it comes to hail, size doesn't matter. Big or small, one call does it all. Call Shamrock Roofing at 913-850-6556 and visit them online at shamrockroofer.com. That's
Nine 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. 913-912-4810. Text says he did it for clicks. Moving on. LOL. He could have, but I don't think Albert Breer's just going to throw something out there just for clicks, right? I guess he could, but I don't think someone who sort of builds their reputation on being a reporter in the NFL will then throw something out there just for clicks that he may not be hearing, or he heard it from one person and it's kind of different. So let me put it out there, even though it's like one random person might have said, hey, I think they're trading up for Jahmyr Gibbs.
I don't think it's fictional. I also just don't think it's worth very much. You know what I mean?
You don't think it's fictional, but it's also not factional.
It is going to cause factions to rift into different pieces amongst Chiefs fans. I think some NFC executives said, man, you wouldn't want to see Jahmyr Gibbs in Kansas City. And he went, oh, that's a good little insight, right. A good little snippet. I'll put that in the story. And I'm telling you, I don't care what an NFC executive thinks, and I don't think that the Chiefs are going to draft a running back. So
the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to go in like the top 40, I also would not like to see Jahmyr Gibbs in Kansas City.
Right, exactly.
So I'm like the NFC executive and the rest of the AFC West.
The AFC West, I bet would love to see.
They'd be fine with that.
And also, you could say stuff like that when it's about Clyde or if it's about Gibbs or whatever. Mm-hmm. You could say, "Oh man, imagine that offense with the best." You're implying the best version of this running back in that offense, and no one ever says, "Man, you'd hate to see the Chiefs load up at guard." And then they build an offensive line that gives Patrick Mahomes more time. And you go, oh, actually, that is worth something. You know, the AFC West should have been worried about Trey Smith, not Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
You know, there's a lot of faith that I have in Brett Veach and Andy Reid in the draft. There have been a couple of misses. You know, I don't think Edwards-Helaire was a bust. I think it was a miss. I think there's a difference between a bust and a miss. Jamarcus Russell was a bust. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a miss. He gave him value. He played on a Super Bowl participating team. He was good at times when he was healthy, but then he got surpassed by other people in year 3. And we'll see what he does in year 4, whether on the team or not. It was a miss. But if Brett Veach and Andy Reid and those in the front office say, we truly believe this player, i.e. Gibbs/Robinson at number 31, is such a difference maker that if we drafted a wide receiver, people would be viewing it just fine. But we're drafting this running back, but we're viewing him as a playmaker, not necessarily a running back. I wouldn't look at it and go, well, you drafted Edwards-Helaire, therefore it can't work. Just as I don't think the Royals should be shy from signing younger players because Dozier hasn't worked out. Like, you can't look at it and go, well, they did it with Dozier and look what happened. Yeah. Now do it with 5 more, and hopefully you hit on the next 4 of 5, and therefore you've hit 4 of 6. And you've locked some guys up long term, and you're going to have some misses along the way. I'm not saying for the Chiefs to draft 6 running backs in the first round, and hopefully you get 4 of them. But if they go that route, I won't look at it and go, it's a massive mistake because Edwards-Helaire wasn't that good. It would be more of the same conversation we had about value versus positional spending, right. And different places that you might have been able to use those resources.
And I don't even know if it's a miss on Clyde Edwards-Helaire that bothers me. I think it's the fact that it was a failure of process is what bothers me. Because, and look, it still could have been a miss on Clyde. If it would have been a failure of process that was then Jonathan Taylor, it wouldn't have been a miss. It would have still been a failure of process, where you would have made contact and now you're standing on second even though you swung with your eyes closed, right? Like that's a different... Bad process can lead to good results. Bad process most likely will lead to bad results. Good process can lead to bad results. Clyde was bad process, bad results. Jahmyr Gibbs would be negligent process, TBD results.
Yeah.
And that's why throughout the whole process of talking about a running back at 32 with Clyde, before it was even him, when we were talking about DeAndre Swift for a while. And
that was the name that came up a lot in the mock drafts.
That was the mock draft name.
Yep.
And then Clyde kind of heats up all that. The reason I was so confident in saying, no, this cannot possibly be the plan, this cannot be what the Chiefs are looking to do here, is because I had faith that they would have a better process than that. Because you can only, and I know this is like this is not an hours-long conversation or a days-long conversation, this is a years-long conversation. you can only be so confident in your own predictions and your own analysis, right? You just cannot believe that you have a 100% success rate on anything in the world, because you are projecting what these guys are going to be from college to the pro level, across positions, into different, from their college locker room to the pro one. There are so many factors. You don't know what's going to happen with their families around them, for their own mental health and well-being, not to mention their physical health and well-being, right? Like, there's just too many variables. All you can do is try to maximize your options and to give yourself the best process to have the best chance possible. And drafting a running back in the first round is virtually never good process, and very infrequently does it ever give you those surprisingly good results. Even Jonathan Taylor in the second, slightly better process, much better results. You have to judge both of those. I'm not saying it's only about the process, but you have to bring the process and the results together and then hope that you end up with a Super Bowl winning team, which the Chiefs do have, thanks in no part to that draft pick.
People don't realize that Josh actually spent the weekend in Philadelphia. So there was a lot of process going on in his mind. It was sort of ingrained and hammered into his head for a couple of days.
I've been
and
watching
he shows
the NBA
up and he's like, process. It must be a process.
It's all about the process.
Process. It will not process.
I'm in a Dalek mode if the Chiefs take a running back again.
Okay, so the wide receivers in this draft class that people have talked about, there's a lot of fun names. And we were on Sunday Sound, or I was on Sunday Sound Off, and those that were a part of the group were talking, that being Nate Taylor, Jordan Foote, Nick Jacobs, Aaron Ladd. We were having a conversation after it was over, and we were just talking about NFL draft and fans being happy or mad or disappointed. I said, it kind of depends on, do you know the name or not?
Yep.
Because the Chiefs traded up last year, and it was kind of a thud when it said Trent McDuffie, because I hadn't seen anybody mention Trent. We didn't talk about Trent McDuffie. No other shows were talking about Trent McDuffie. No mock drafts had Trent McDuffie. People thought they were traded up to get Jermaine Johnson or George Karlaftis or something like that, and they get They get Trent McDuffie, and it was like, huh? Oh no. Okay, well, I guess he went. I don't get it. He's always been able to build the cornerback room without having to use all of those resources, and now he's using extra draft picks to go up and get this guy. But had we been saying, boy, if there had been a lot of talk about Trent McDuffie would fit the Chiefs system and this and that, and boy, if you can get Trent McDuffie somewhere in the first round, do you have to trade up? Maybe. Would he be there? Probably not. But a player like that, my goodness, what he would do for the Chiefs. If he was talked about, I think trading up to Trent McDuffie would have been, they got him.
Yeah.
They went and got the guy that everybody was pumped about. It turns out pretty damn good for year one, because he proved that he was worth a first-round draft pick. He has to continue playing at this level to prove that he was worth the first-round draft pick and the extra pick that you traded, and those resources. So we'll see what happens. And so I think a lot of it comes down to, do you like the draft pick or not? Have you heard the name? Have you been talking about the names? Have you seen people discussing the names? Do you have an idea of what they may look like? Do you have a projection of what this player might be? Position certainly matters too. And I think Edwards-Helaire, to go back just for a quick second, I think Edwards-Helaire at LSU, people like that because you had seen some of the highlight plays. You had seen the balance and the ability to make guys miss in the passing game and different things like that didn't ever really translate to the NFL, unfortunately. But you saw it. So you can envision him doing that in a Chiefs uniform. So the All-Pros in the NFL, I went back and looked from 2014 to 2022. Every single receiver that made an All-Pro team. And there ended up being 26 different receivers made an All-Pro team. Okay. Not a Pro Bowl, because there were like 170 that made a Pro Bowl. But All-Pro, you've got 3 receivers. So 26 different receivers. I used first and second team All-Pro, by the way. So you've got actually, you know what? I did not. I used All-Pro, but it's AFC and NFC. So that's why there were 2 columns. So 26 different receivers that have made an All-Pro team going back to 2014. And I need to scroll over. It's 2012. I apologize.
It's actually 2023.
Yes. Anyway, let's just say All-Pro receivers of the last 10 years, there's 26 of them. And I went and looked at, are there things in common from what they did in college to see if there's some sort of production that can be kind of a marker for what they can end up doing. And when I looked through with the 26 players, I updated it this year. I've been doing it every year. 26 players, 18 of the 26 players. So it's not across the board that everybody did this. 18 of the 26 players had at least 140 receptions in their college career. 19 of the 26 players had at least one 1,000-yard season. 18 of the 26 players had at least an 1,100-yard season at some point in their career. 20 of the 26 receivers had at least 2,000 yards receiving for their career. 19 of the 26 receivers had at least 15 touchdowns in their career. 20 of the 26 receivers had at least 8 touchdowns for a season high receiving. So what the markers are, 140 receptions, at least one 1,000-yard season, at least 1,100 yards receiving in 1 year, 2,000 yards receiving for your career, 15 touchdowns for your career, and at least 8 touchdowns in one season. That comes to, a touchdown every 3 quarters of a game. If you're playing 12, 13 games, things like that. So here are the receivers. And by the way, going back to just to give an example, like a few years ago, the receivers that stood out that met that criteria, it was CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman, and then later in the draft, Gabriel Davis met every single one of those criteria. Here are the receivers this year, and I went and looked at the consensus top 20 receivers in the draft this year. Consensus top 20. I'll just go through the names real quick. Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Jalen Hyatt, Rashee Rice, Josh Downs, Tyler Scott, Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims, Jaden Reed, Jonathan Mingo, Trey Palmer, A.T. Perry, Nathaniel Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, Kayshon Boutte, Michael Wilson, Parker Washington, Ronnie Bell. We say Ronnie Bell. The top 20 on the consensus draft board that you can get at different places. They just take all the different draft boards, like 20 different draft boards, and come up with a consensus. There are 5 receivers that match all 6 criteria. Only 5 of those 20 receivers match all 6 of the criteria. And there's only one that's viewed as a first-round draft pick right now that matches all 6. Now, these are the things. You don't have to match all 6, right? Because it's just like 18, 19, 20 of the 26 did that. And there are some all-pro receivers that, looking back, did not do anything. Like, say, Tyreek Hill did not meet any of those markers. Josh Gordon did not meet any of those markers in college. Michael Thomas met 1 of those markers in college. Pretty good players. Deebo Samuel matched 1 of those markers in college, but he was also used as a running back.
That's what I was thinking.
So
What? All
Tyreek
purpose.
Hill
I wonder.
And Deebo, the one that kind of sticks out is Michael Thomas at Ohio State. He only played 3 years, but still. But then there are players that, matched all. Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Johnson, Odell Beckham Jr., Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Des Bryant, Jordy Nelson, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp. Guys like that had all 6 of them. This year there are 5. And we can look at some others. We'll take it. I'll give you the 5 right now.
The 5.
I'll give you the 5 right now, and then we'll look at some of the others that fall just short, and a couple of them that meet 0 of those baseline criteria. We're looking at all-pro. If the Chiefs take a receiver in the first round, you would like him to be somebody that could be an all-pro, especially in this. So, just what it could be. Here are the 5. Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice at SMU, Josh Downs at North Carolina, A.T. Perry at Wake Forest, and Nathaniel Dell at Houston. Those are your 5. On the other side of the break, we'll tell you what some of the bigger names we've been discussing: Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, Jalen Hyatt, Tyler Scott, Cedric Tillman, Marvin Mims, Jonathan Mingo, players like that. Where do they match up? Where do they fall short? Are they close to matching that criteria so where it can be kind of negligible? We'll do that next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
It's draft week, the draft itself almost here. And if you're looking to enhance your experience, Tickets for Less can help. The New Heights podcast will be live on Wednesday night at the Music Hall, and the Kelsey Jam Music Festival kicks off Friday night at Azura Amphitheater. TicketsForLess.com is your source for the best selection of tickets with no fees. Plus, you can save big when you enter promo code 810 at Tickets for Less. Take advantage of big savings around the draft and get your tickets now with code 810. That's code 810 at TicketsForLess.com.
If you or your child suffer a sprain, strain, or fracture,
All right, so some of the players' names that we've been talking about that don't meet some of those wide receiver markers for the all-pro receivers going back to 2012. 26 different all-pro receivers, looked at the college stats, things like that. For example, last year, Sky Moore, all 6 of those criteria he met. Hopefully that turns out to be Sky Moore being, a pretty good player. I liked Sky Moore in the draft. One of the reasons I did is because, he had the at least 140 receptions in his career. He had a 1,000-yard receiving season in his career. He had 2,000 yards receiving in his career. He had at least 15 total touchdowns in his career. He had 1 year in having at least 8 touchdowns in his career. He wasn't a stat accumulator, right? Just a stat builder. He played 4 years and he had 15 touchdowns in 4 years. He played 40 games and had 15 touchdowns. Okay.
He had 800 yards as a freshman. I don't remember ever talking about that. That's pretty impressive.
And
even
then,
in the MAC.
and then injuries as a sophomore, only played 5 games. And that's the thing. He only played 30 games to be able to do that, did Sky Moore.
Right.
So let's look at some of the names that fell short and how they fell short. Jackson Smith and Jigba met 3 of the 6. So it's only half of that criteria that Jackson Smith and Jigba met. Now, the wide receivers we mentioned in the previous segment that met all 6, Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice from SMU, Josh Downs from North Carolina, A.T. Perry from Wake Forest, and Nathaniel Dell from Houston. Those last 2 are viewed as mid-round picks, like 4th, 5th, 6th, day 3 picks. Rashee Rice and Josh Downs viewed as second-round receivers, Jordan Addison first-rounder. So it kind of spans, the entire draft with that. Smith and Jigba fell short on total receptions. He only had 110. Total receiving yards only had 1,700, and he needed to get to 2,000. And total touchdowns, he only had 10, and he needed to get to 15. But he only played 23 games. And one of the things that's sort of the common denominator is, do you get to at least 30 games in your career? He played 23 games. So if he had 7 more games, could he get 30 more receptions? Yes. 7 more games, could he get 300 more receiving yards? Yes. 7 more games, could he get 5 touchdowns receiving? Absolutely. He could have 3 in one game the way Ohio State scores. So, yes, I think that is absolutely true with all of those things. So there's sort of an asterisk next to Quentin Johnson. Or, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Quentin Johnson is one that stands out because he only matched 2 of the 6, and he played 30 games in his career. His season high is just over 1,000. He did have a 1,000-yard season. He did get to 2,000 yards in his career. So a 1,000-yard season, having at least 1, and 2,000 total receiving yards in his career. Those are the 2 that he got. Receptions, he fell short. He only had 115 in 30 games. Didn't get to at least 1,100 yards receiving, although it was 1,070, so, close.
Actually, 1,069.
Nice. Total touchdowns in his career, 14. He sucks. Didn't get to 15.
Definitely shouldn't be drafted in the top 30.
High for touchdowns in a season, 6. Didn't get to 8.
Did it twice.
He absolutely did it twice.
Weird little fluke.
But there's a reason like some of these things are there is because like what are you doing consistently over the course of a season and then consistently over your career. Zay Flowers fell short on one thing and one thing only. He didn't get to 1,100 yards receiving. He had 1,077 in his career, in his high for a season.
Hard to see him being a first round.
He was 23 yards away from matching all 6 of the criteria. 23 receiving yards in one season. He had 200 receptions. He had 3,000 receiving yards, did Zay Flowers, and he had 29 touchdowns in his career, with 12 of those coming in one season. So not only did he match that criteria, he blew away everything except for that 1 year in which he didn't have 1,100 yards receiving. So a little asterisk next to Zay Flowers as well. There are some things that you're like, okay, can you sort of bend the line a little bit to get there? Jalen Hyatt actually matched up with 4 of the 6. He had the touchdowns in a career, touchdowns in a season. He had 1,300 receiving yards in a season. He only had 108 receptions and only 1,700 receiving yards in his career. The receivers that fall well short. Tyler Scott at Cincinnati matched 1, and that was a season-high touchdown of 9. He fell short on career touchdown, career receiving yards. He only had 900 receiving yards in a career, or in his best season. And in 30 games, he had 87 receptions. 2 players ended up with 0 of the 6. And plenty of games played to get there. One of them is someone that I really like.
Yeah, you haven't said Cedric Tillman's name yet.
Not Cedric Tillman.
Did you mention him somewhere? We haven't gotten to him yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
He matched 3 of the 6, so he's kind of right in
Okay,
the middle.
all right, good. Okay, I was afraid that's where this hammer was going to fall. All right.
Jonathan Mingo.
Oh.
0 of the 6 for Jonathan Mingo. And he played 34 games. 112 receptions. Season high was 860 yards receiving. For a career, less than 1,800 receiving yards. Total touchdowns in 34 games for Mingo was 12. And the highest he had in one season was 5. Production's not there. And then Michael Wilson at Stanford. Played 36 games and fell short in all 6. But he's the 17th out of the 20th in the. If you're looking at locally, Ronnie Bell had 145 receptions and 2,300 yards receiving in his career. Only 9 touchdowns. He had some injuries that sort of cost different seasons, things like that. But just as something to keep an eye on, I think Zay Flowers, you can say, he kind of matches the criteria. Jackson Smith and Jigba without the injuries would match the criteria. But injuries matter.
Yep.
Cedric Tillman had a lot of injuries because he only played 24 games, did Cedric Tillman. And he had 109 receptions. And he had 1,600 yards. But he matched the touchdowns, though, in only 24 games. He got all the touchdowns he needed. Some of it can be an indicator. Some of it can be the offense they played in. Some of it can be noise.
Kansas City's official home of the
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk with Matt Verderam coming up at about 11:25. We will hang out with Craig Brown at noon from Into the Fountains, and then Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, coming up at 1 o'clock. So we've been talking about the wide receivers in this draft class and looking at some of the production that they had in college, and comparing that to the 26 different receivers that have made an All-Pro team since 2012. And some of the players that fell just short, some of the players that we've talked about and heard the names and things like that. Quentin Johnston fell short on number of receptions in a career and total touchdowns in a career, and a season high of touchdowns fell short of what the markers were for some of these All-Pro receivers that we've looked at throughout the last 10 years or so. Now, there are certainly some outliers with that. For instance, as we said, Michael Thomas only met 2 of the 6 of the criteria. Julio Jones was 5 of the 6. Brandon Marshall was 3 of the 6. Now, again, this is going back to 2012, so these are maybe some names from the past. Demaryius Thomas was 5 of 6. A.J. Green, 4 of 6. Andre Johnson, 3 of 6. Let's see. Stephon Diggs, only 2. 150 receptions and 23 total receiving yards. He fell short on touchdowns for a career, touchdowns in a season, and having over 1,100 yards receiving. He ended up with 848 for 1 year. That was his season high. So there are some that are outliers of what they end up doing in college, and some of it could be what was the system, or what they do in the NFL, and what was the system that they had in college. There is one extreme outlier to all of the All-Pro receivers, and the numbers are just freaking silly. So I'm gonna go through every single All-Pro receiver since 2012. Here we go.
Okay.
And you tell me which college, the college production is the stupid, ridiculous outlier.
In a positive way?
Positive
in an
way.
Overwhelmingly, okay, I was like, so you
Overwhelmingly
mentioned Tyreek Hill
positive.
earlier, and I bet he has to be one of the best receivers to ever whiff on a whole bunch of those categories.
Yeah, no, I mean in college.
In the positive, right.
It's overwhelming in the numbers that they put up in college.
Got it.
Even with these markers, it's just like, hey, that guy had 18 touchdowns. This guy had 7,000.
Okay.
So
right.
here are all the names. Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Brandon Marshall, Demaryius Thomas, Calvin Johnson, Odell Beckham Jr., A.J. Green, Chris Godwin, Tyreek, Adam Thielen, Mike Evans, Des Bryant, Jordy Nelson, Josh Gordon, Andre Johnson, DK Metcalf, Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. There are 2 players that one stands out for the lower end, and one stands out ridiculously at the top end.
You said his name pretty early, and the name that if you would not have read any that I would have gone with still would have been Calvin Johnson.
Okay.
Because he went high enough for that to have been there. I don't remember his college career, but he has alien abilities, so that would be my bet in the positive.
Calvin Johnson did match all 6.
Okay, I forget about that.
178 receptions, had 1,200 yards in a season, had 2,300 yards for his career, had 28 touchdowns, and had 15 touchdowns in 1 year.
Hit them all, but didn't break the scale.
But didn't break the scale. Let's go to the one first that had the rough, the 0 of 6.
Okay.
DK Metcalf matched 0 of the 6.
Wow.
His 3-year career, he had 67 receptions. His 3-year career, his season high receiving yards was 640. His 3-year career, he had 1,200 total receiving yards. His 3-year career, he got 14 total touchdowns, and the high he had in one season was 7. He had 0 of the 6, did DK Metcalf. Now, it is not an end-all, be-all. That if you don't match any of these does not mean that you can't be an all-pro receiver, because DK Metcalf was a guy who graded off the charts and was a freak, but people said, why didn't he show that in college? Dontari Poe, why didn't he show that in college? Like, we've seen some of those before. We've also seen this guy is an athletic freak. Why didn't he show that in college? And then in the NFL, they don't do anything. You go, oh, I guess he's just a crazy athlete. When you take him out of the pads, he's awesome. The player that stands out in just an absolute ridiculous way. He went to a group of 5 school. And he is a Super Bowl MVP.
So, Super Bowl MVP.
Yep, Super Bowl MVP. And stands out in just an absurd way in college. Group of 5 Super Bowl MVP.
Wide receivers won Super Bowl MVP.
You don't have to think back too far.
I didn't think so, but
Like just 2 years ago.
Cooper Kupp blow it up. Look
Cooper
at that.
Kupp at Eastern Washington.
Eastern Washington.
Cooper Kupp at Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington's, are they FCS?
I will do my best to. I can visualize their logo.
They
That's
might be FCS.
That's about what I got.
Um,
They're in the Big Sky Conference.
okay. Yeah, they're FCS.
Great logo.
They're FCS. So it's not
FCS
even Group
Big
of
Sky.
5. That's why it threw you off. Had I said FCS, you would have nailed.
I was thinking like about Antonio Brown. Like, well, he didn't even win it. Santonio Holmes won. You didn't mention Santonio Holmes.
Yep. But
did he
Antonio,
go?
but Antonio Brown did have an amazing career. He had over 300 receptions
He was
in his 3-year
a
career.
monster.
So he had 3,200 receiving yards in his 3-year career and over 300 receptions in his career. Here are Cooper Kupp's numbers. In his 4 years, Cooper Kupp had 428 receptions. He had 6,500 receiving yards, did Cooper Kupp. He had 73 touchdowns and a season high of 21. The next closest to the 73 for Cooper Kupp is Devontae Adams, 38, at Fresno State for a career high. The career high of the top 20 consensus players in this year's draft is 32 for Nathaniel Dell at Houston. He had 73. The career high in receiving yards was DeAndre Hopkins at Clemson with 3,000. And Devontae Adams, they both had right around 3,000. The career high of the receivers this year in receiving yards is Nathaniel Dell, again, from Houston. Right behind him is Jordan Addison. It's around 3,100 yards. Cooper Kupp had 6,500. And the career high for receptions of those other 25 all-pro receivers, Antonio Brown with 305. And then this year, the most receptions out of the top 20 consensus players is 254 by Xavier Hutchinson from Iowa State, who, by the way, matched up with 5 of the 6. Cooper Kupp had 428.
He doesn't even have a sports reference page for his college stats. You have to get him from NCAA.com.
It's so stupid.
It's unbelievable.
It is so stupid.
73 touchdowns in 4 years.
Yeah.
52
it's like,
games.
That's a guy who was an all-pro wide receiver in the NFL playing at the FCS level. That's what that is, which literally is what it ended up being. But in 4 years, he had 428 receptions. In 4 years, he received 6,500 yards. So there are some that are outliers. Cooper Kupp was just absurd. So if you're going to be in the FCS or a smaller school like Antonio Brown, those numbers need to be kind of eye-popping to a degree, which
Sky Moore cleared, it's not quite the same, but Sky Moore cleared all of those categories. Didn't do Cooper Kupp numbers. I'd forgive him for that. 73 touchdowns in 4 years is a heck of a standard to hold.
there are
21 as a freshman. What are we talking about?
of the top 20 consensus draft boards of the top 20 wide receivers consensus rankings. There are 1, 2, 3 players that were in the group of 5. They were not Power 5. Division I group of 5 players. 3 players. Rashee Rice, Tyler Scott, and Nathaniel Dell. 2 of those 3 matched all 6 of the criteria. Rashee Rice and Nathaniel Dell. Tyler Scott did not. He didn't have the receptions. He didn't have the yards. He didn't have the total touchdowns in his career. He fell short of that. So I'd be a little concerned of Tyler Scott, but also Tyler Scott is viewed as more of a second-round receiver, maybe even late second. Like, Tyler Scott would be a guy that would be on the board, I think, at 63 for the Chiefs.
I agree.
So if you're going that route, all right, you're taking a speed guy, you're taking somebody that can make some plays, but you're not taking somebody that was the go-to main receiver on his team that was ultra productive the entire time he was there, whereas some of these other Rashee Rice at SMU was that guy. 230 receptions in his career, 3,000 receiving yards in his career, 25 touchdowns in his career. Nathaniel Dell Houston, 228 receiving yards, 228 receptions, 3,200 receiving yards, 32 touchdowns in his career. Like, played at a group of 5, but really good. And Nathaniel Dell, by the way, is the 15th ranked receiver in this draft class. Just one to sort of keep an eye on. A.T. Perry, one to keep an eye on. He's the 14th ranked. Those are guys that had all 6. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with this. But it's been fun to look at over the years of the different draft classes as the receivers in college, because there are some clear misses. One of the misses that stands out going back a few years ago is first-round draft pick Jalen Reagor.
Oh, yeah.
Matched all 6. And I think he had 6 receptions in his career. It was not great, Bob. That was a pretty big miss. One that didn't match the criteria, but because he only played 2 years at the Division I level, and he was close in all these different markers, but he didn't get there because he only played 2 years, Brandon Ayuk. It's one of those sort of, you put an asterisk next to it. That's where Jackson Smith-Njigba comes through, is you kind of put an asterisk next to it, to where it's like, he didn't meet the criteria, but he only played 23 total games in his career. You worry about some injuries. Ayuk wasn't injured. He played junior college, and then he played 2 years in college. So that was his 3 years of eligibility, and then he can go pro. And he's been pretty good while he's been playing for the 49ers. So just some names to keep in mind. I like Jordan Addison already. I'd be perfectly fine if the Chiefs take Jordan Addison. I'd be perfectly fine if the Chiefs take Zay Flowers. I'd be perfectly fine if the Chiefs take Jackson Smith-Njigba. Same thing for Quentin Johnson. Quentin Johnston, if they get him. I don't want him to take Quentin Johnston because I'm going to keep calling him Johnson.
That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. Actually, if they
Sorry, it's going to be an off one.
Damn it. That was good.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was good.
I think Addison and Flowers, on kind of two different ends of one particular spectrum here, are two of the guys that come out looking the most interesting from all of this, because of a very important question that I could ask anyone listening right now, which is, do you know who is throwing the football to Zay Flowers? Just last year, 2 quarterbacks split time. I do not know why they split time. I do not watch Boston College football.
What?
The 2 quarterbacks who started 10 and 8 games respectively for Boston College last year. Not a joke, ladies and gentlemen. Emmett Moorhead and Phil Jurkovec. We can combine them into one guy and just call him Jerkhead. Jerkhead plays 18 games, averages exactly just under 60% completion, because these two dudes have like borderline identical stat lines. 11 and 8, touchdown to picks, 10 to 6, 59.5 to 59.9% completion percentage. These dudes are the same. Whatever. I don't know anything about them. Fine. But Zay Flowers produced as clearly this team's number one, if not only, weapon, with quarterbacks who I had not heard of before I checked their box score today. On the other side, I know exactly who was throwing the ball to Jordan Addison, both at Pitt and at USC. Mm-hmm. Both quarterbacks, a recent first rounder and a future potential number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, you're right.
And I don't know that gives or takes value from either side. I just think it's super interesting because we're using these same metrics and seeing these two guys get there in such different ways. I like that Jordan Addison became a number 1 option for 2 number 1 type quarterbacks. I like that Zay Flowers was able to do it with no real threat around him anywhere else. I don't necessarily know that either of those has more or less value, but I think it's fascinating.
So some of the recent guys, if we want to look at like their college quarterbacks, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
They had a pretty good player in Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Devontae Adams had Carr, even though he was at Fresno State. Like, who was his quarterback at Fresno State? Derek Carr. So not too bad. Calvin Ridley had Tua and Hurts.
And Quentin Johnston had a quarterback who made a name for himself in college, but no one is looking at and saying, and also Johnston did it as TCU's guy, like capital G guy.
I don't know who was throwing the ball to A.J. Brown at Ole Miss. Let's find out. So his last season at Ole Miss when he had a huge year, Jordan Ta'amu and Matt Corral.
Oh.
So, I mean, they were good college,
Boy,
college quarterbacks.
What an interesting little quarterback group.
Yeah.
There.
So, good. Jordan Ta'amu played 12 games that year for so he was their main guy. Matt Corral, I think, was the younger guy getting ready to take over. So, like, A.J. Brown, that's who he was receiving the
Chiefs
football
legend
for.
Jordan Ta'amu, by the way.
That's exactly right. In case people were wondering, that is Chiefs legend Jordan Ta'amu. What about Stephon Diggs? Like Stephon Diggs at Maryland.
That's a good question.
Who was the quarterback for Stephon Diggs? Let's see if we can.
I'm going to go junior year here.
His C.J. Brown. By the way, C.J. Brown also led Maryland in rushing yards.
And then Caleb Rowe was in there for 4 games as well. A few passes. Not familiar with his work.
Yeah. So their main quarterback also led their team in rushing yards. So something to keep in mind when you look at the stats for Stephon Diggs and you go, wow, he only matched 2 of the 6 in college? Gee, I don't know. Well, your quarterback led your team in rushing yards. Now, that isn't always a bad thing because Lamar Jackson threw for like 3,500 yards while also leading Louisville in rushing yards. But I don't know who C.J. Brown is. I know what Lamar Jackson was, and he was a Heisman Trophy winner. So it is an interesting point about Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison that they came about getting their production in vastly different ways, where Jordan Addison has played with his 3 years first-round draft pick quarterbacks. One that already was a first-round draft pick and one that is going to be the expected number 1 overall pick next year in Caleb Williams. Zay Flowers was receiving passes from you and me. so there is something to keep in mind with that. So 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation, 913-912-4810. Now, we mentioned all these names, and they may not even draft a wide receiver.
They'll draft one somewhere. You know what? They'll draft one in Kansas City.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Well, no,
round, who knows?
They'll draft one from, it'll be in Kansas City. I was going to say, no, they'll draft one from One Arrowhead Drive. Where's that located?
Checkmate, Jason.
Damn it.
I got you at every turn.
It's in Kansas City. There's no team. The wide receiver thing is interesting, and we'll talk with Matt Verderam a little bit about this.
Wonder what Ma Verderam thinks.
Dang it.
Sorry. I won't happen again.
So they do sign Richie James and Ustin Watson. Oh, dang it. I put one T. I said Ustin.
It was still pretty good. I still wasn't expecting it.
So Richie James and Justin Watson, which is fascinating because you feel like, MVS, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, there's 3 of the 5.
Yep.
Justin Watson, Richie James. There's 5 of the 5 receivers that they typically have active on game day. Justin Watson costs them more. The way that it's structured now, we look at the way that the salary cap money is structured now. You can go to Spotrac or over the cap. It will cost the Chiefs $130,000 to cut Justin Watson this year. So it will cost the Chiefs more against the cap than it will to actually keep him. He's going to make the team. Mm-hmm. Richie James, they could save $540,000 against the cap. It's a little over $1 million for him, cap hit this year, but it would be a dead cap hit of like $550,000. So it comes to exactly $540,000. Like I said, a little over $1 million. It's like 1.092, whatever. So they'd save over $500,000 by releasing Richie James. Kind of feels like if they go wide receiver, and that's not including Justin Ross, who is clearly going to be an all-pro receiver.
Absolutely.
Will be in this list. Once
I'll
we
check
get
his
into,
production. His production.
Thank you very much. That 1 year was amazing.
Yeah.
He might have matched all. He might have
He
had
had 2,000 yards, right?
Might have had 140 receptions, 2,000 yards, and 20 touchdowns all in 1 year. He might have actually. It was a phenomenal year. I know he had at least 1,000 yards receiving.
Do you know how many yards he had exactly as a freshman? 1,000.
Oh, really?
000. Yeah.
What did he do the other years? Did he
865 in his sophomore year, didn't play his junior year, or didn't play 2020, I should say, and then his second junior year, 514 in 10 games.
What were his career
numbers? So he did end up over 2,000 yards. Over 2,000 yards for his career, 158 receptions, 20 career touchdowns, 9 of those in that freshman season.
Matches all the criteria.
Tell you what, guys.
There you go. Every single marker, all 6 of them. He's 6 for 6 as Justin Ross.
Justin Ross hype is back.
There you go. Bring it back. They can't cut Justin Watson. Right. You would have to have a really good 1 through 5 for them to go, you know what, we're moving on from Justin Watson, even though it would have cost us more against the cap to cut him than it would be just to keep him. And they love him on special teams.
Yep.
And he's been around the offense for a full year. So you'd be bringing somebody in that has not worked in the offense before, being Richie James or whoever they draft. Maybe they draft a couple receivers in this draft. That would be fascinating, because where are the spots for them? That's the question, is where are the spots for them? And I'm not sure, because I think Richie James has value. I think he could be a valuable piece to this Chiefs offense. Now, that does not mean that, well, they shouldn't draft wide receiver because they're set at wide receiver. No, because if you can get better at, your top 3, if you can slide Sky Moore down to your number 4 receiver instead of your number 3, well, yeah, you just got much better. Take Jordan Addison in the first round, and you got MVS, Addison, Tony, Sky Moore as your top 4, great. Then figure out the final, 1 or 2, depending on what they go with Watson and Richie James, and great. It's just the structure that came out over the weekend or late last week and how the contracts are looked at. It's going to be difficult for them to go, Justin Watson didn't make the team. Same thing with Blaine Gabbert. Adam Teicher, who's was on this morning with the Border Patrol, is like, look, they like Shane Buechele. Is it a guarantee that Gabbert's going to make the team? We'll see. Well, I think it is, because it's a fully guaranteed deal they gave him.
But it's also not very expensive. Salary benefit and all that. It's just a good deal.
It's about $1.092 million cap it. Pretty much the same as Richie James. Only Blaine Gabbert's is fully guaranteed. So if they do cut Blaine Gabbert, they would take the entire contract as a dead cap hit. It wouldn't make sense to fully guarantee that and then think he's not going to be our number 2, right? Even though last year they did that with Jermaine Carter, fully guaranteed the contract and then cut him. I'm like, sorry, not good enough. I think you know a lot about Blaine Gabbert, what he can be as your backup quarterback, rather than Carter, that was viewed as this guy could be the 3rd linebacker. And then he wasn't even close. Sorry, you got to go. These other guys are much better. Plus, they signed him before they drafted Leo Chanel. So maybe that could be a little bit like Richie James. You get somebody, Addison's there, somebody in the 2nd round, you're like, we didn't think Rashee Rice was going to be here at number 63. Richie, maybe you'll beat out Justin Watson, maybe we'll see what happens. But for the time being, we got our 5. And that would be great. If the Chiefs go into the season where Richie James ends up getting cut, that to me is a pretty good indication of what the 1 through 5 is for this Chiefs team. What the receiving room is, what those players look like, who they are, and how deep it could be while not having that true number 1 receiver. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated, will be our guest. We'll talk with him about the Chiefs roster, some players in the draft he may like, and what he expects from this upcoming NFL draft. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
We head up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Craig Palmer coming up at noon. Excuse me, Craig Brown coming up at noon. Not sure who Craig Palmer is. We'll reach out to him, too. We'll have Craig Brown on the phone along with Craig Palmer. We'll just get both of their thoughts on the Royals. If the Craig Palmer doesn't know anything about the Royals, he might be just as good
He's friends
as
with James Anderson.
Well, there's James Palmer. You know, I was looking at the the format, and there's a clip from James Palmer. So I'm like, oh, well, there you go. It will not be Craig Palmer. It'll be Craig Brown. That'll join us coming up at noon. Right now, talking with not Matt Palmer, but Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated, joining us here in the zone on this Monday of the NFL Draft. Matt, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I am just fine. I'm just fine. What's the? Do you have a feel for the Chiefs draft this week on Thursday and maybe even Friday as to positions or maybe even players they might be leaning towards or anything you're hearing? Because Albert Breer had the Jahmyr Gibbs maybe trading up for him, and he heard at least one person say that. But do you have a feel of what Thursday and Friday might look like for the Chiefs?
No, because I don't think anybody realistically does. I mean, look, I certainly work with Albert, and I respect. I'm sure that was told to him. But I mean, the reality of it is, like I always think about stuff like that and say, okay, that is absolutely valid. Somebody would have said that to a reporter, but where is that coming from? Like Brett Veach isn't calling up other people around the league and going, "Listen, we're thinking about trading up for a running back." I mean, so like to me, now is that maybe from inside the building? Somebody saying, "Hey, if a guy's here at 25, we consider it maybe." But first of all, I just cannot imagine any world where the Chiefs take a running back in the first round. I just can't. Not after what just happened a couple of years ago. They have Isaiah Pacheco, and unlike when they drafted Allaire, where they were so good that you're like, well, look, they have the luxury to take this guy and they can do it. That's not the case this year. They need another tackle. They need a receiver. They need an edge rusher. So my feeling would be, if anything, that over the first couple of days of the draft, those three positions are probably going to be focused. It doesn't mean that all three positions will be satisfied in the first 2 days, but I would think that if the board falls right, then yeah, there's a really good chance that those three spots on the team are looked at pretty aggressive.
Do you think, Brett Veach's MO is to be aggressive and to trade up? And I think there's a lot of people thinking that they may trade up, in the 20s somewhere, if there's somebody there that they like. Certainly, they showed it last year that they were willing to do that with Trent McDuffie. They did have 6 picks in the top 3 rounds to be able to do that, to maneuver the draft board. With only those 3 picks in the first 3 rounds, while they have 7 more in day 3, do you think Brett Veach is likely, or is it more possible than maybe not that he does use some resources and trade up from 31 to go and get somebody that may be there? Or is this one of those drafts to where they may have 10 picks, but let's look at where those are, and maybe staying put at 31 or even maybe trading back might be the more the smarter decision?
I think anything's possible, but I think that if they move in the first round, I think it's more likely they go up a few spots. They have the 10 picks, as you mentioned. They have an extra 4th, I believe. If I'm doing this off memory, they have an extra 6th and an extra 7th. No, those picks are not going to move you up a ton, although the 4th round it can move you up a few spots. I think if you're Brett Veach and you see somebody on the board at, let's say, 24, 25 that you really like, then I think you go try to get that guy. Last year, again, you said McDuffie, and I think if you're the Chiefs, you're not trying to fill out 8 spots on this roster. You're trying to fill out 1, 2, maybe 3 needs that you really feel like can get you back to a Super Bowl and win another one. And I think if you're the Chiefs, like every team in the league, you're going to sit there and you're going to have your board and you're going to watch it. As the draft goes on, you're going to take names off the board of guys who get picked. And, last year they talked about it after the draft. They thought McDuffie would be gone in the early to mid-teens.
Yeah.
He wasn't. If there's a guy like that this year, let's just use him as an example. Let's say Quentin Johnston's the guy at TCU, the receiver, that they really like. But they think of their intel is going to be gone around pick 15, 16. If he's there at 24, go get him. I think if you're Kansas City, you're in a position to do that. Where maybe if you're a team like a Minnesota, which drafts 23rd, by the way, maybe you say, look, we got like 7 needs on defense. Mm-hmm. It behooves us to trade back. So I could see the Chiefs being moderately aggressive early in this draft.
Visiting with Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated. I've talked about before, and it has come at consternation or annoyance from maybe fans that I'd be perfectly fine if the Chiefs trade back out of the first round. And I know that people have talked about, well, they have 10 picks and they can't have 10 players on this roster. Totally understandable. I get that. My view is, and I guess if I'm trying to decide between these two, there are a couple of mock trades out there, and I'll just use one for example. The Chiefs trade back from 31 to 41 with I believe it might have been Houston, but they trade back from 31 to 41 and they pick up number 72. So Matt, I'll just ask you, if you were choosing, if you're the Chiefs, would you rather have the picks 31, 63, and 95, or 41, 63, 72, and 95? What would be a better way of going about it if you're Brett Veach? Because you get a lesser player when you drop 10 spots down, but you get an extra pick at number 72 that would be a higher third round.
Because of where they are in their development, I'd rather have the highest picks. I just think, to me, they've shown they can nail these picks, mm-hmm. and you only need a couple of guys. I mean, right now, if the season started tomorrow, they're the favorites in every book in Vegas on the Super Bowl. If I'm them, I'm focused on 2 or 3 positions, and that's what I want to hit. Listen, there's certainly an argument to be made to move back. I mean, you can sit there and just say, look, this is a draft where there's not a lot of blue-chip guys, but there's a really, really good bit of depth between, if you talk to people in the league, between picks like 15 and 75. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I totally understand if a team moves back, whether it's Kansas City or otherwise. I just think if you're the Chiefs, a lot of it too, let's be honest. A lot of this comes down to how does the board fall for them as they're waiting to pick? Because if the board falls in a way where a lot of their top targets are gone by pick 23, 24, then I think they probably should trade back. They probably should say, all right, let's kind of recalibrate. If there's 2 or 3 guys on that board that they absolutely love, I think they should go get them. So it's hard when you're picking at the end of the first round to really decipher a draft strategy, even for them going into it, because there's so many variables in front of you. And talking to people around the league, one thing I will say about this draft's going to be highly unpredictable, even in league circles. I mean, there are players who some teams think are first-round picks and some teams think are third-round picks. And while that is true every year to a degree, this year I think the variance is just massive compared to most years. You're going to have guys go off the board between 20 and 31 that people who follow the mocks, and they're going to be stunned go off the board because it's a year where the difference between the 20th best player and the 70th best player, it depends on who you are, but I don't know that there's a ton of it, at least not perceived anyway. Certainly there could be over time, but perceived, I don't think there's a massive difference with some of these positions.
It was Matt Verderam's our guest. Brett Veach's press conference on Thursday, he was asked about, where does that sort of variance come in to where you see a guy drafted and you go, well, that's a reach. What are they doing drafting that? We had him like a 5th-round pick or whatever. And Brett Veach said, it typically starts around the 3rd round. Because he said, a typical years 1 through 50 are kind of consensus that guys are going in maybe different spots. We had him at 16. He slipped to 21. We had this guy at 24. He was taken at number 18. Things like that happen with every different draft board. But he said, in general, the top 50 are kind of consensus. Once you get into the 3rd round, he goes, there's times where we see somebody drafting and we're like, well, we had that guy as a 5th rounder. And he goes, guess what? We've taken some guys that I bet other people have said, what are they doing drafting that guy in that round? But that seems to be the feel around the league, right? Is that while typically 1 through 50 kind of a consensus, that's not the case this year. And that variance might be starting much earlier than in years past that Brett Veach talks about. That kind of the 3rd round is when you get into where the boards start to really get scattered from team to team.
Yeah, I'll look at the receivers as an example. The receivers, if you polled 10 different front offices and said, all right, rank for me 1 through 8 the receivers in this class, I guarantee you there's 10 different lists, and pretty substantially different lists. Like, I know of people, for an example, in the league who think that Cedric Tillman is a better receiver than Jalen Hyatt, and they both played at Tennessee last year. Now, I don't think Tillman's going to go ahead of Hyatt, because I think most people would say Jalen Hyatt's better. But there are absolutely people in the league who think that Tillman might be the better overall player. He was more consistent at Tennessee, didn't have the highs that Hyatt had, but Hyatt also was very good for 1 year. He wasn't good the previous 2. I think there's some of that. I think a lot of people, Jackson Smith and the Jigbat of Ohio State, I think most people believe is the first receiver off the board. But after that, you start looking around and you like Zay Flowers, you like Jordan Addison, you like Quentin Johnston, you like Hyatt. You can go on down the line, and you might get a million different answers on who fits what. And I think a lot of it, Jason, in this draft is going to come down to what's your scheme.
Mm-hmm.
What is your personnel currently? What do you need? I think that's going to be. Everybody always talks about best player available, and that's true to an extent, but that's also a lie to an extent. Like you're trying to fit a puzzle together, and I think this year specifically, you're going to have a lot of teams that go, you know what? There's not a big difference between the second receiver on our board and the 6th. So let's take the best positional fit for our scheme, for what we're missing, and I think that's going to cause a little bit of chaos too.
Yeah, we always joke about how often and coincidental the best player on the board also just happens to match a need that that team had. It's like the Chiefs, if their best player on the board is Will Levis, they ain't taking him at 31. So they're taking the best player that matches value and what they need.
Yeah, and I think that's always like the big lie of this week, right? Like, people, you're right. You get these poor GMs. I actually do feel bad for them after like day 1 or day 2 of the draft. They got to come out and do a presser.
Yeah.
And they look like they've walked 100 miles. And, they're like, yeah, this guy was the best player. No, he wasn't. Let's be honest. Like maybe once every 5 years, it actually is the case that it fell in a certain way where that guy was the best available player to you. But usually, look, like for Kansas City, I guarantee you, has not done one bit of research on any of these quarterbacks who could go in the top 3 rounds. They don't care. They're not taking a quarterback in the top 3 rounds. So, like, you start looking at, they're going to be like, okay, receiver, tackle, D tackle, D end, always looking for another corner. Mm-hmm. Like, they'll rank out all those positions, and they'll do all their due diligence. But, like, to your point, the Chiefs are not going to sit there and have Hendon Hooker at 31 and go, you know what? He's the best guy on the board. Got to take him. It doesn't matter if he's better by 15 spots. Now they might trade back. But, yeah, these teams all have their needs prioritized, and then they kind of marry that to who's the best available of those positions.
Yeah, it's not an automatic draft when you can't show up with your friends online. It's like, hey, the draft starts at 7. I'm going to be there at 7:45. Sorry, I'll just auto draft. Okay, how did I take 3 running backs in the first round? Damn it. Well, it's just auto drafted. Sorry. Visiting with Matt Verderam from Sports Illustrated. Do the Chiefs have a type in this draft for wide receiver, maybe specifically, that there's a lot of it to where, I like Mingo. I've seen, by the way, put me in the camp of Cedric Tillman over Jalen Hyatt. That's my personal opinion. But some of these guys that are bigger, and they don't necessarily have that player on this roster, Juju Smith-Schuster, left. Would it matter to the Chiefs, do you think, of, okay, Zay Flowers is there and he's 5'9", 180, or Cedric Tillman is there and he's 6'3", 215 and an X receiver? Do you think the Chiefs care, like specifically we need an X, we need a slot, or is it, we just need the best player at wide receiver that can also match scheme because they can figure it out and then go from there, and he doesn't have to be, hey, we've got our X receiver now to fill Juju's spot?
Yeah. It's a great question. I've thought a lot about this when I was doing my mocks, and I was doing this because I actually did a mock. I did one mock that was serious, and I did another one. I traded every first-round pick, which was just fun and insane. But the actual one I had Zay Flowers to the Chiefs. And I thought about it because, he is diminutive. Would they take him there? And I kind of came down on the side of, I think because of how versatile that offense is, they're just going to take whoever they think is the best receiver. Mm-hmm. I don't think they necessarily care. Now, I could be wrong, but, MVS is a bigger receiver. Now, granted, he's lanky. He's not a big, 6'2", 220-pounder. But, Tony's got decent size. He's not a big guy. He's not small. Sky Moore, obviously, a little bit on the smaller side. Richie James, a smaller guy. So I think they're just going to look at it and go, well, who's the best guy? Who's the best player out here? Now, I will say this. I think if they could pick one trait above all, I think they'd like to get a guy in there who can really run a full route tree. Yeah. Somebody who because right now, I mean, Tony could develop into that depending upon his health and everything else. Like MVS doesn't have that. Sky Moore obviously is an unknown at this point. Richie James is not going to run a full route tree. They could really use a guy who, that was the one thing that was underrated with Tyreek Hill more than anything. Tyreek Hill ran a million different types of routes. And when you can do that, you're going to get open. I mean, if you can run good routes and you can run a lot of different routes, you're always going to have that corner guessing. Whereas, MVS, he runs a handful of routes. It's not hard to figure out based on alignment what he's running, and he's got to be really, really good to be able to beat you on that route. So, look, I think the Chiefs, they're going to have some options. And by the way, there are some other guys. You mentioned Jonathan Mingo, who I agree with you. I really like. I'll give you another guy I really like. Is Jaden Reed out of Michigan State.
Michigan State, yeah.
He is a really good player. And a lot of people in the league are really talking him up. I could see him being right around when the Chiefs pick with the second-round pick. He's a really interesting guy. I saw him at Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Super impressive.
Yeah, And we went through wide receiver like markers for all pros in 6 different categories. He met 5 of the 6, so somebody that's there. All right, last one for you, Matt. We've been asking different people this question when we wake up on Saturday morning. Chiefs takes three picks. What's the one position you are most confident that they would have addressed out of those 3?
Tackle.
All right.
Tackle. I just think in the end, if you can protect Patrick Mahomes for 3 seconds, you win.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
I'm with you.
You could be running routes. Yep. Like if he's upright for 3 seconds, good luck.
Yeah.
Look at the AFC title game. They were throwing the ball to Marcus Kemp in the 4th quarter, and it didn't matter. So I think in the end, in the first round especially, if they get there and there's a tackle that they like, I think ultimately that's where they'll go. I just wonder if there's going to be a run on tackles early and it forces them to maybe take one and day 2.
Is there a tackle you like, real quick?
I love Darnell Wright. I don't know if he's going to get Kansas City, but that kid is when you watch his tape. But I will say, I talked to one scout. He felt that is the deepest position in the draft. A lot of really good tackles.
All right. We'll see what ends up happening. By the way, I could do that. I averaged 11 yards per reception in high school, so totally would be able to give me 3 seconds. And no chance. No chance I'd be able to do that, Matt. Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated. You're the man. Enjoy the week. It should be a lot of fun here in KC. Matt, appreciate it as always, and we'll be checking everything out and following and watching and all of that stuff with the coverage this week from you, Matt. Appreciate it, bud.
Can't wait to get out there. Thanks
Absolutely. Yep. Matt Verderame with us. Great stuff from Matt. Yeah. I love Darnell Wright, too. I like him. I don't think he'll be there. I like him a lot. In fact, we have Trevor Sikkema on every once in a while from Pro Football Focus, and he's got the NFL Draft Stock Exchange podcast. And they did a mock every other draft, he and Connor Rogers, every other pick. And at number 10, he took Darnell Wright. I'm like, wow. Now, he really likes him, obviously, a lot more than I do, but I would love for him to be there at 31. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Look, NBA playoffs, it continues to roll, and that means big hoops action continues with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and of the NBA, the NFL as well, but of the NBA. 3 NBA playoff games going on tonight. Get in on the excitement of every game, the touch of a button. New customers make a $5 pregame moneyline bet, score $150 in bonus bets if that team wins. Plus, everyone can score a no-sweat same-game parlay every day during the NBA playoffs. Open the DraftKings Sportsbook app, opt in, place a same-game parlay on any NBA game. If it doesn't hit, you'll get a bonus back up to $10. Took advantage of that. Missed on the same-game parlay, got the bonus bet back. Hit on the bonus bet. So, felt good about that one. New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up with code 810WHB. That's code 810WHB only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 plus, physically present in Kansas. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Opt-in required. One bet issued based on amount of initial losing NBA bet. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort.
Hey guys, Matt Coker here from West Coast Men's Health to let you know that you don't have to take Viagra for the rest of your life.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Matt Verderam joining us here in the zone, talking some NFL football, the draft coming up this week, and tons of stuff with the draft this week that we've got you covered with here at Sports Radio 810, including the awesome online auction that is going on right now with the Path to the Draft online auction. And you can join Sports Radio 810 and help out and benefiting those in need in the Kansas City community. And throughout the year, Sports Radio 810 supports many incredible local charities, City Union Mission and Restoration House and Horizon Academy and Mission Southside and many others that we try to help out as much as possible and give back to the community. And we do that through online auctions like what is going on at 810WHB.com/auction right now with all of these different items that you can go and bid on. Some of them a little more time sensitive, like you can bid on 4 tickets to the Path to the Draft event coming up tomorrow night. You can bid on the Patrick Mahomes pretty awesome full-size helmet. That was the Salute to Service helmet. That's up to now $1,300, which makes sense because that's a pretty awesome gift. Or just,
gift to yourself.
Gift to yourself. Yeah, gift yourself. Treat yourself. Sky Moore football. Travis Kelce, Super Bowl football.
I love that one. That might be that's one of my favorite things out here, I think.
Nick Bolton signed mini helmet.
Also, just a great. It's on the Super Bowl logo from this year. Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, he scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Did Kelce score a touchdown in the Super Bowl?
What Super Bowl?
This previous Super Bowl.
Oh, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl again, didn't
they? They did win the Super Bowl. Because I know Nick Bolton scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
And Sky Moore scored a touchdown, and Kadarius Toney scored a touchdown. I don't think Travis Kelce scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. You know who scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl? Nick Bolton.
Boom.
Nick Bolton has as many Super Bowl touchdowns as Travis Kelce.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Wow.
I'm not saying. Travis Kelce, overrated? Yes, or why is the answer yes?
Travis Kelce did score a touchdown in the Super Bowl.
Damn it, he did.
I could not. I
remember
hate
either.
being put on the spot with stuff like that.
I'm
because
just sitting here thinking,
just,
I'm like, oh, that's right, he did have that one. Dang it.
It is just all one big
stupid.
glob. If you would have told me Nick Bolton scored against the Bengals, I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There's no way he scored against the Broncos or anything also, though, right?
It's the second half.
That's got to be Nick Bolton's only career defensive touchdown. Got to be.
I only remember the second half. I don't remember the very first touchdown of the game.
I remember Patrick Mahomes' ankle.
That's right.
And the Lombardi Trophy and some confetti. Everything else is a little bit of a blur.
I forgot about the absolute dime that Mahomes dropped to Travis Kelce when he ran sort of that wheel route against the Eagles and caught the ball and got up, and Jason Kelce said, okay, little bro, I forgot all about that.
Probably wouldn't forget about it if you had a Travis Kelce signed football in your house.
But if you take that away, Nick Bolton has as many touchdowns in the Super Bowl as Travis. And if you take the touchdown against the 49ers away, Nick Bolton has more.
I think if you get this signed Deuce Vaughn football, you can legally force the Chiefs to draft him.
That says
it's
it
a
right
lot of
there.
power, but it's for a good cause.
It says it right there.
18WHB.com/auction.
And by the way, that is on a Big 12 Champions football. It's pretty awesome. So there you go. Craig Brown next.
Kansas City's official home of the NFL Draft. Sports Radio 810 WHB, Kansas City.
Hey, Kansas City, Stephen St. John here, live at the Deck Supply in the Northland on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The address is 8610 North Boardwalk Avenue. You know where it is. It's right next door to Brew Top and right in the same strip mall as Twin Peaks. You know where that is, all right? So stop by and see me here. I'm here till 1 o'clock, and you can get a brand new copy of the Sports Radio 810 Draft Guide. And you could be one of the first people to get one because they just came out. And there's sirens in the background. Hopefully they're not coming to get me and they're just going to leave me be. But come out here to the Deck Supply and say hello. I'm going to be here until 1 o'clock, and I've got new copies of the Sports Radio 810 Draft Guide. I'm at the Deck Supply. Everything's okay, I promise. 8610 North Boardwalk Avenue in the Northland. Stephen St. John live on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Come to Chicken and Pickle in Overland Park tonight at 6 p.m. for a special live broadcast of Totally Offensive with former Chiefs players Gary Dieter and Anthony Sherman. Gary and Anthony will preview the NFL Draft take pictures, sign autographs, and take your questions live from Chicken and Pickle in Overland Park. And remember, with the weather getting nice, court availability is changing by the day. So don't wait to book that court and get together with your favorite peeps. We'll see you tonight at Chicken and Pickle in Overland Park.
Stephen St. John here for Kansas City Credit Union. Open a kids saving account in 2023 and be entered for a chance to win a new KC Edition Monopoly game. Help kids learn to plan ahead, set goals and priorities for their money, and it provides a place for allowance, birthday money, etc., and they can watch it grow. And it's also an opportunity to learn about different financial terms so they can get more familiar as they get older. And you'll be entered for a chance to win the new Kansas City Edition Monopoly game. So for more information, visit kansascitycreditunion.com/810sports.
For great views, go to Kansas. For unforgettable views of action-packed racing, go to Kansas Speedway. With a premier facility that gives fans what they want, how they want to see it. And with a Saturday doubleheader, a Sunday Cup Series race, and great deals on kids' tickets, the views will get better all weekend long. NASCAR weekend at Kansas.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Mick Schaefer coming up at 1 o'clock, KSHB 41. Let's now talk to our man covering the Royals. We talk with him each and every Monday. It is Craig Brown from Into the Fountains, intothefountains.substack.com. Joining us here in the zone. Craig, how are you? They almost took the series against the Angels, right? I mean,
it was close.
Yeah.
I mean, it felt close, but,
1-3. They got to win.
Well, you can't complain about a win. They won the same number of games this past week as the week before. So they're not losing ground, right? I mean, 1-5 and 1-5.
Just start changing that to 4 or 5 wins in a week and repeating that. Now you got something.
Right. Then you got to stew. Exactly.
Got a good feel for that. I was really hoping they would win yesterday for a lot of different reasons, but would make for a better conversation, here if they were to take one from a series from the Angels. But they did not, and it's gone from bad to worse. I asked, we talked last week on the air, and I said, is it rock bottom? I was going to ask it in a certain day, and I erased it because I said, you know what? I don't want to ask if it's rock bottom right now because I want to wait till the news from Bubic comes out. And then the news from Bubic came out, and I said, you know what? I do think this is rock bottom. I don't know that it can get much worse than this. They've played better baseball since then, so I'll ask you, was rock bottom the losing streak coupled with then the news of what was one of 2 really exciting positives to start the season in Chris Bubic now going under the knife?
Yeah, you never want to invoke the Bell axiom, what I call the Bell axiom, that, never say it can't get worse.
I know.
Especially in April, I mean, things aren't going good if you're veering in that direction. But it does. It was in tandem, really. The Bubic news. As soon as we heard, that he was going for a second opinion or multiple opinions, you knew what was going to happen. I mean, you don't go for multiple opinions if the initial news is positive. So that wasn't at all surprising. The losing streak is just something that we see. It feels like almost every year, early in the season, April, May, the team drops 6, 7, 8 games in a row. That just, basically, they're. You want to think that they are going to contend or that they're going to be in the hunt, and that might have been a little pie in the sky for this year. The way that the team was all set up. Contention wasn't really, that wasn't an expectation. But on the flip side, you don't expect the team to only have 4 wins out of their first, 28, 30 games. That's, that's an abysmal record, even for a team that is, supposed to be a little bit further along in the rebuild or whatever they're doing. So, yeah, I mean, it does feel a little bit like rock bottom. There were positives from the losses and definitely from the win. I mean, it was a great comeback on Saturday. It was easily the most entertaining game of the season, I think, and a lot of fun to watch on a Saturday night. They were in it for the most part yesterday. 3 home runs in a row will sink you, but Jordan Lyles is giving the Royals what I think that they were expecting, which is just kind of a guy that'll go out and get you 6 innings. He'll give up some runs, but you hope that he keeps the team in the game, and I think that he's pretty much done that in his start so far. So they just got to. It's the offense. They got to start firing.
Yep. Visiting with Craig Brown from intothefountains.substack.com. So that's the sort of general. Let's talk about it specifically from Bubic, and we'll move on to some other things. What do you think this means then for maybe the season? As there was a big part of this year, Craig, was what do they have? Can they find some pieces? And Bubic was thought of through 2 starts that maybe this is different. The way the ball is coming out of his hand, the shape of the pitches, the new slider, the way that he's using it. This is going to be a different Chris Bubic, and now you just have that threat. He might actually be a piece, and then that happens, and he's going under the knife. What does this do for Chris Bubic over the next couple of years, the Royals staff, the possibility of who can actually fill out those 5 if it's not just going and grabbing a random journeyman that can fill innings like Jordan Lyles and unfortunately Zach Greinke, and the rest of this year is terms of figuring out what they have.
Yeah, I mean it's just awful timing for Bubic because he did have those first 2 positive starts of the year. The velocity was up, the movement was up, the slider was looking good. He had confidence in the pitch. So for me, the Royals are going to need Daniel Lynch to recover and step up big time to fill out that rotation. I don't really know who else in the organization right now. It just doesn't feel like that there's a lot of help on the horizon, on the the near horizon, to fill that out. So I think that we'll probably see what they deployed on Friday a little more frequently with the opener, which I thought worked out really well with Taylor Clark and Ryan Yarbrough. I think that. And that's one of the reasons why Matt Quatraro is here. He thinks outside the box. He is a forward thinker, a creative thinker, and how to manage and juggle that rotation. And he's got the challenge right now with Bubic out. I hope that for Bubic the rehab goes well, that we see him back on the mound in the minor leagues rehab stint in 12 months. And hope that his velocity is intact. I mean, that's what worries me the most is that the velocity was so new, and I hope that he is able to, in his rehab and recovery, rediscover that velocity, because to me that was really what was pushing him forward. It was adding the movement to the pitches based off that velocity, and maintaining the comfort of throwing like that slider. There's always a mental aspect in rehab from a surgery too. So, he's got to regain that confidence that he clearly had early in the season. So, a few hurdles ahead for the team and for Bubic.
Yeah, and the other thing is it counts as service time.
Right, exactly.
On the big league club, which is always unfortunate when that happens because just not much you can do when something like that takes place. So just gotta go with the positives and what has been a lot of the negatives. Visiting with Craig Brown, he is our guest here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. As we've talked a lot of football, and we will this week, but. Hunter Dozier is a guy that has been talked about a whole lot, Craig. I go back to a line from one of my favorite movies, and that is Little Big League. And it's when Jerry Johnson, who the little kid's favorite player when he was growing up, is really struggling. And he doesn't want to cut him and doesn't want to cut him and doesn't want to cut him. And he finally gets a seeing eye single, and he goes crazy. And the bench coach looks over at him, and he said, "Kid, don't you think it's a problem when you get that excited over a seeing eye single?" That is Saturday night with bases loaded and the Royals down by a run, and Hunter Dozier up there with 1 out, and he hits the ball and slowly rolls over to the third baseman, and everybody's safe, and they score a run, and he gets an RBI. And it's like, yeah, he did it. Hunter Dozier did it. Isn't that kind of the most damning with faint praise? That don't you think it's an issue when you get that excited over him just simply putting the ball in play and it finds a soft spot between the pitcher and the third baseman rolling and it wasn't even a bunt?
Well, that's why you want him to put it in play, because anything can happen.
There you go.
Put it in play.
Well, for him, it might be a double play, so sometimes a strikeout's better.
True, very
at times.
True. Well, I thought, that hit was like, they're talking all season long so far about exit velocity and hard hit rate and everything. And the Dozier and that ground ball to third was like 55 miles an hour.
Yeah, so
and then the single that he had in the ninth inning,
he did come through
to add a couple of insurance runs. That even was a little flare at like 65-ish or so. Not hitting the ball hard, but putting it in play and seeing where things happen. So good for him. I wouldn't bank on that happening on a consistent basis, but they needed him to come through. And fortunately he did, and gave him that cushion in the ninth inning too, which was really huge. Even though he put the ribbon on it by overrunning first basically, and trying to stretch that into two bases when really the play was kind of stick close and keep the rally going.
Yeah.
But you can't have everything.
Yeah, it's not like you're trying to force a throw to make sure that run scores. The run was going to score, and he just didn't wait to see if the ball was cut or not, and he just went ahead and rounded first, heading to second because he expected that ball to be thrown to home, but it wasn't going to be a play, and you're into the third out. But you know what? Beggars, choosers, all of that stuff. Dozier went 2 for 4 and had a few RBIs and a couple of hits there, so that certainly helps. But I bring that up in the joke about the kid. Don't you think it's a problem when you get that excited over a seeing eye single? There was some frustration. There is some frustration with the front office and the ownership. So you want a new downtown stadium? This team the way they're playing is not the best way to go and ask the fans to do that. There were a lot of fans that thought they should have spent more money in this offseason. I don't think they were a player or two away from, competing or anything like that. It might have been, money best served elsewhere. I bring that up to ask you, can the ownership and to show that, hey, look, we're not just being cheap. We're doing things and spending money the way that we think is the smartest way of going about it right now. Paying $200 million for Jacob deGrom isn't going to get this team to win the division. So is that a waste of money just to spend money? Can the ownership gain trust or even earn some equity with the fans by just walking on Dozier and eating the $16 million to say, we aren't cheap and only keeping him around and playing him because we still owe him $16 million. It's what's best for the club, and we're willing to eat that because we will spend money or do some things that might be tough financially if it's for the best interest of the ball club. Can they gain trust or equity with the fans by simply doing that, or is that just expected bare minimum that any organization should be able to understand the sunk cost fallacy?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of a standard expectation, honestly. I mean, it would move the needle, but if the wins and losses aren't there, you're not moving it enough. But, Dozier, there's always a lightning rod, and Dozier's the guy right now.
It is.
And deservedly so. I mean, but, of course, the Royals came to him, or they were amenable to, giving that contract, and, he took it. So, good for him to get the guarantee. No ill will there, but it was not a smart baseball move on the part of the Royals. Now, I would think that it would be potentially a little bit easier for the Royals to walk away from that, as that was a Dayton Moore deal, who obviously is not with the team anymore. So it's the old front office versus the new, and the new clearing out some of the bad contracts or some of the bad decisions of the old front office. I mean, you see that all the time. Sunk costs or not, but we've seen enough over the last couple of years. I think it's pretty clear that when you're looking at his page at Baseball Reference or at Fangraphs, there's one year that stands out.
Yep.
That's the outlier. That's the 2019 season that where he was an above average hitter. Every year since then, he has not been above league average with the bat. We know that the defense is an issue as well. So for the contract that they gave him, it's not the value isn't there, and at some point the Royals do need to make that decision and move on and just say, hey, we can't trade him. We can't, keep him rostered on this team. So, it's time to move along. But when you look at the roster right now, when you look at the 26-man roster and the hitters that are on there, there's a lot of guys that are scuffling.
Yeah,
it's not just Dozier.
Yeah.
So, in one way, it's kind of like, okay, you cut him, but then what? You got a bunch of other guys that you got same issues that you got to address. They don't have the contract, but similar performance issues there, at least early in the season.
Yeah, no, I've called him Dozern because he's this year's Ryan O'Hearn, so he's Hunter Dozern or Ryan Dozern, whatever you want to go with. The additional conversation with this is also what's going on in the minor leagues, and is he blocking somebody? I don't think it's coincidental, but I'll ask you if it just happens to be coincidental that the last 4 games that Maikel Garcia has played for Omaha has been at third base. Is that a coincidence for you, or is that they're getting him ready so when they finally say, Hunter, I'm sorry, man, it's time to move on, that Garcia is ready to go?
Yeah, no, I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. I mean, that's a twofold thing. It's the commitment to Bobby Witt Jr. for the entire year at shortstop, and it's finding a spot for Garcia, which, you know, the most likely spot would be third base. And you know, again, Quatraro is a guy that will, you know, move his lineup around. He shuffles the batting order. He shuffles the defensive alignment as well. Dozier is, you know, as we know, has started all over the field. He started at third. He started at first. They've kept him out of the outfield, which is probably a smart thing. But he's been primarily the third baseman. He's gotten the most starts at third. Nicky Lopez has gotten a handful, and so has Matt Duffy. But, you know, if you wanted to bring up a guy like a Garcia and, you know, throw him into the frying pan, third base would be the spot for the Royals to do that, so they could keep Witt at shortstop like they want to do, and, you know, potentially that solves a problem. A lot of guys are hitting at AAA. It's a good environment to hit. How that translates to the majors is another thing. So the Royals will need to be absolutely sure that Garcia is ready to handle the position and the pitching.
Yeah, he's batting almost 300. He's OPSing over 800, and he has roughly the same amount of walks as strikeouts so far down in AAA. It is not the big leagues, but we'll see. I think that also, if there was a move on Dozier and then Garcia was brought up, I think there would be more of a level of, okay, so it's not in the last year or so, they've moved on from Michael A. Taylor, Whit Merrifield, Carlos Santana, Andrew Benintendi, and Hunter Dozier to turn the page to the next group of players, which gives you some breathing room, right? It gives you a little bit more of, hey, we're letting these guys develop. The concern, Craig, and, you know, I hate to go from a negative to a negative, the concern would be, what happens when the guys aren't playing well? What happens if these are the next wave is here, guys. Give us a little bit of time, because these younger guys, and if they're just simply not performing, then you've got a real issue for what the outlook would be for this team.
Yeah, that's why I said with Garcia, you really got to be sure that he's ready to make that jump, because we've seen too much of that. I feel like with some of these young players, where they, you know, they're not all going to be Vinny Pasquantinos, right? I mean, they're not all professional hitters in that same vein, but the struggles have been pretty intense. I mean, a guy like Michael Massey has just, you know, at times looked lost at the plate, and I say at times, I mean it's the majority of the time for him so far this year. You know, and you don't want that, because it feels like for some of these young guys getting that exposure, that taste to the major leagues, it's very difficult to dig out. It's difficult to learn to make the adjustments up here when you're not prepared for it. So it's a thing that, you know, yes, they've done right. I feel, you know, the names that you mentioned, it was all time to move on. Those guys were kind of placeholders anyway. We knew that when they were in for the most part, and so, you know, and you don't want that. That's not anything that, again, you know, you go back to the stadium and asking for money or support. You don't want your rosters to be full of, you know, guys like Benintendis and Santanas that you know are only going to be here for a year or two, just keeping the spot warm until, you know, you can bring somebody up. But you got to have those young guys ready to perform. Otherwise, it's you know, it becomes a really grim picture offensively if you've got, you know, half of your lineup struggling to stay above the Mendoza line.
Craig Brown is our guest from Into the Fountains, intothefountains.substack.com. All right, last one for you. The Royals broke out the new home run helmet. It's from Gladiator with Maximus. Apparently this was something they wanted to do in spring training, but they could not find a helmet that would match what they all wanted. So it took till April 24th and 23 games into the season before they finally got the helmet they wanted. I don't know, sure. So that's fine. Have a little fun. They're hitting more home runs when they're putting the helmet on, so maybe that's what it comes down to, is just having some fun in the dugout. What I'm really interested in is what Bobby Witt Jr. said about wearing the Gladiator helmet. And then he said, that Gladiator sort of having to fight everybody. He said, that's our mentality, everyone against us.
Okay.
A couple, one, great if that's what you want to go with. Two, he's 22, 23 years old and already thinks everybody's against him and everybody's against the Royals. Three, Royals fans aren't against you, man. I promise, they are not against you. They are absolutely for you. They're against the product that continues to be put out. They are not rooting against you, man. They are not rooting for you to fail. They are rooting for you to succeed. When they're frustrated and booing, it's not because they hate the team and don't want you to succeed. It's because there are expectations there to succeed. I'm a little concerned about the 22-year-old that already feels like everyone's against us.
Well, super young guy.
Yeah.
Maybe his memory doesn't stretch back to 14 and 15, or he wasn't paying close attention. But if you're part of a winning team in Kansas City, this city turns out. They support you. They embrace you. Those guys on that team are legends. And he can achieve that same status.
Yep.
It's he can only do so much. I mean, it's a team game. He needs the front office to get the right players around him. But the disrespect card is tired and true in sports, and so hey, if it works. To me, that helmet looks a little uncomfortable. I don't know. There's other options out there, but sure, roll with it. If you got to back it up, though. I mean, if you're going to be Gladiators, you got to hit a lot of home runs. So good luck. Go for it, I guess.
Here's what's smart about wearing that helmet, and there's nothing worse than wearing a helmet, batting helmet, football helmet, and people tapping you on the head, smacking you on the head. Hey, nice job, paint right on the head every once in a while. You put that helmet on, there's spikes. Ain't nobody tapping you on the head with that helmet. It's smart.
Well, yeah,
very smart.
It's a way to nobody touch anybody wearing the Gladiator helmet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Pat him on the back, give him a pat on the shoulder, whatever it is. But you're not gonna hit him in the helmet and knock him on the top of the head when they're walking by, because there's spikes on that thing. It's just smart. I mean, that's a really smart move by the Royals. I'm glad they finally have one. Craig Brown, Into the Fountains .substack.com, Into the Fountains newsletter, and the ramblings that happen from time to time. Craig, you're the man. Very much appreciate the time. Hopefully next week we are discussing a better Royals week while we're discussing who the Chiefs drafted. So
more than one win. That's what we're gunning for. Baby steps. Let's do it.
Two wins will slowly progress in the right direction. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. There's Craig Brown, Into the Fountains, intothefountains.substack.com. With us, and good stuff there from him, and at intothefountains.substack.com, and different the ramblings that he has from the weekend that he writes about, and just different things across Major League Baseball, and then breaking down different games and series, and getting a chance to break down a fun one on Saturday. It was a fun game. They won the game. That's awesome. That's cool. They almost won yesterday. Kind of feels like my son's 7-year-old team. Played an 8-year-old tournament yesterday. Played kids a year older, and this team we had lost to 22-4 a month ago, and then lost to them 16-1 2 weeks ago. We were leading 8-5 in that game. You know what? You guys are improving. You're getting better. That is a damn fine team you guys were playing, and that's a year older team. Royals, they got Trout and Ohtani over there. You damn near beat them twice. Go ahead and throw that Gladiator helmet on. Everybody's against you. You show everybody that you'll be damned if you're going to lose 3 games in a row to that really good Angels team. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, Drake. We had up until 2 o'clock. Mick Schaefer's KSHB 41 sports directors. Mick Schaefer will join us at 1 o'clock. Learn funniest best. Will come your way in the 1 o'clock hour as well. I was saying to Drake in the break that you think NFL Network can maybe get some video of what Union Station looks like right now?
Is that a problem for them?
With the stage being built? Because every time it's like the B-roll of coming back from break or going to break, it shows like, the draft in Kansas City, and it's showing, the memorial, it's showing the grass, the lawn, and then it shows Union Station, cars driving by and everything. But it's just Union Station what it typically looks like. As if like B-roll was taken before some random Chiefs game sometime. Let's get this shot here. The only thing they're missing is a shot of the scout. That's all they're missing right now. It's like, because I would like to see what it looks like right now as it continually,
it's not that hard. I can verify this pretty easily because at 12:21 p.m., Curtis Siebold tweeted out a live video feed from EarthCam. It's just a screenshot of whatever he was pulling from there. And, that's cool. That's a live shot. And then shortly thereafter, it was like, hey, NFL Network want to get a live camera out there or anything? I mean, you can. I imagine wherever Curtis found this from, you could probably watch it being put together, I would think.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
It's very cool
to see it coming together like that.
It's too bad NFL Network doesn't have anybody here yet.
I don't understand that.
You just put them on a tripod?
It's pretty easy. That couldn't they just
fly a drone, dude?
You could just put that picture up, and people would think like that maybe that's what's going on right now. There's a picture of Kansas City right now. Is it's coming together right now with the stage, the largest stage that's ever been put together for the NFL draft. Because as they say in Kansas City, everything's bigger in Kansas City.
It's the common term.
Or Texas, one of the two. One of the two, everything's bigger.
It is interesting to see on not what NFL Network has, but what Curtis tweeted out, how far out in front of Union Station the stage is coming. Yeah. It's much, much further than parade stuff and all that. I mean, it's coming all the way out to the fountain that's out front there, which kind of hides a lot of Union Station, which is kind of a bummer. I imagine you'll probably be able to see through the main stage, though, and that once cameras are there, it'll be cool. From this very high-angle shot, you're seeing a lot of tint. But it looks like it'll be really cool. And I'm kind of getting a better feel for how they're going to pull it off now, because the degree of difficulty on turning the area directly in front of Union Station into basically Radio City Music Hall is a tough one.
Yeah, it's essentially that Circle Drive is now a stage built on top of that, which is cool. And then you can see the lawn where everybody will be able to have an awesome view of that.
That will be fantastic.
So you'll be able to see everything. It's not like you're going to be 2 miles away. You're not going to be on top of the Western Auto sign,
right?
Trying with binoculars, trying to look at it. It's a great view, and people have had that view during the parade a couple times.
Yes,
so they put they put a stage or two up there, or 3 up there in front of Union Station, just not this size of a stage.
And I would recommend, if you're planning on going down, check out the website and look at the list of allowed and prohibited items. It's very similar to an NFL game. You have to have the clear bag. It has to be a certain size. And I know they're talking about maybe rain on Saturday, and umbrellas are not allowed.
Maybe Friday night too. Friday looks like it could be a little dicey.
So don't get caught by surprise. Look at the list before you head down there, and there's nothing really surprising on the prohibited list, but make sure you look at it before you get down there.
Josh actually says Thursday night running backs are not allowed either.
That is correct. You know what
is allowed? Thursday night.
You know what it is allowed? Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got a few beliefs to hold on to here.
If they draft a running back, what would the fallout be, boy? What's the fallout?
I would definitely be going down swinging. That's 100% true.
I'm done. I don't even know.
That's okay. We could do Fall Out Boy puns as long as you have ammo for it. But I could do this for centuries.
I had an empty clip. There was not even a song that I was going to come up with. You came up with them. Oh, I guess, was that Fall Out? Oh, that was a Fall Out. Oh, cool. Good for you.
Thanks for the memories, but let's move on.
I think you could dance around a couple more, Drake. Seth Walder just tweeted out odds here. I'm not sure where. It looks like this could be DraftKings, but I haven't verified it in my own app yet. First drafted defensive player, Tyree Wilson minus 150. Will Anderson plus 115. Jalen Carter plus 1,500. That's your 1, 2, 3. Smoke screen season.
Wow. I mean, even if that's a smokescreen, I'm going to try to get
whatever's
the
going
value
on.
right there with Will Anderson.
If you still like Will Anderson, that's great value.
Yeah.
If you think the Texans are going to go non-quarterback, that's something to grapple with.
Yeah.
If you think that the Texans do go quarterback, which now there's more Will Levis talk, and it's just I don't like it here. But if they go quarterback, is that the Cardinals love Tyree Wilson? The first defensive player could not go until the 5th pick.
Yeah.
Probably won't happen that way. Possible.
So, KC Sports Commission, they have tips for attending the draft. You know where you can find those tips for attending the draft?
Indeed, I do.
Yes, the Collector's Edition magazine that Sports Radio 810 has put together, the NFL Draft and the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs Collector's Edition that we have for you. That'll be available at all Hen House locations, Barstool Sportsbook at Hollywood Casino. Visit KC, Pizza Shuttle, Broback Barbecue, all remotes and hit events between now and the NFL Draft, and we'll let you know where some of those are going to be. Stephen St. John out on location up north. There's a digital version located at 810WHB.com, but I've got the hard copy right in front of me right now, and there's a couple of features in here. Different dealers, the Super Bowl, Chiefs 138-35. That's cool.
Yeah, pretty neat.
Rebuilding or retooling. Kansas City Comes Full Circle by Joshua Briscoe, Briscoe.
And there's no E on that one. I know because I double-checked the proof.
I wanted there to be an E so bad. I specifically opened it up to what you wrote just to see and hope that there was an E there.
Jason's actually going to all local Hen House locations with a Sharpie, and he's signing the cover right over Patrick Mahomes' face, and then he's adding an E to the end of my name.
That would be phenomenal.
And then he's crossing out the T in Johnston.
Thank you. It just makes it easier for everybody.
This is a really late edits for
just
you.
Just put the E there and take the T out of Johnson and of Johnston.
No,
and
you're right.
Good. Everybody's good. Everybody's fine. What'd you write about here? Rebuilding or retooling? The full circle.
Yeah, the headline.
Hey, by the way,
you really set it up.
Here's a picture of Kelsey's touchdown in the Super Bowl. Right here with your story.
Hey, look, I didn't write the picture. Okay, I wrote the story.
That picture writes itself. It's worth 1,000 words.
It truly, and mine's not even 1,000, so it's worth less than one picture. But the angle on mine is the full circle of where we're talking about right now. The stage in front of Union Station. How now we are seeing that moment from Brett Veach holding up the Lombardi Trophy saying, this is what a rebuilding year in Kansas City looks like on the stage in front of Union Station in February. Now, here at the end of April, we are going to have draft picks being made from all 32 teams from that stage. And the way that those two events are connected, in my mind, both last year's draft, the rebuilding, retooling that the Chiefs did in one offseason, to end with a third Lombardi Trophy in the team's history.
Soren breaks down how last year's draft class was so good that, I mean, the 2023 draft class, it can still be really good, but boy, it's going to have it'd be tough to come close what last year's was. And he's got all the different numbers and stuff like that. And I'm assuming there's a couple of links to some spreadsheets that Curtis has put together, which would be only right if that's the case. And Lebo's got a mock draft in here.
I think Curtis has some trivia in there as well. I have not checked the trivia yet. I've not attempted to get them right. It's one of the questions: did Travis Kelce catch a touchdown?
I'm going to use that for the next Sports or Leisure we have.
You should.
I'm not
That's a
going to
good
give away
idea.
any of those trivia questions. And Lebo's got a mock draft in this thing.
Sure does.
Got the Chiefs taking FAU, Felix Enudike Uzama.
Spoiler alert. We're not going to tell you the 30 before it, though.
Sorry.
Or you can. That's fine.
He's got a surprise at number 1. I'm not going to tell you what it is. And I'm closing this in case somebody was looking on the Twitch. I'm not going to let you know what.
Bijan at 1, I thought was bold, but at least it keeps Gibbs on the board for the Chiefs.
Yeah, thank goodness. Can we hear? You know what? Let's take a time out and we'll hear from Mel Kiper.
Great clock management.
What people are talking about at number 2. Are they going to pass on quarterback and maybe take Tyree Wilson?
Betting favorite currently?
Because it was if they pass on quarterback, they'd go Will Anderson.
Would have made sense to me.
Tyree Wilson. We'll talk about what Mel Kiper could be hearing on if the Texans pass on a quarterback at number 2. You know, the draft starts at number 2. That's what a lot of people say. Draft's going to start at number 2 because everybody's expecting Bryce Young to go.
You want to double tease? I did just get DraftKings open to see the odds for the number 2 overall pick, who their favorite is there. And the answer will shock you.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you remember who believed in you? Well, I have a great opportunity to pay it forward by being a big brother or a big sister. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Kansas City has kids ready to hang out, play catch, or catch some fish. Now's the time. It's the Big Draft event. Sign up, attend an information session, and you and a guest are invited to the Big Draft event on day one of the draft in the Crossroads.
So we got a couple teases out there. One from who is the odds-on favorite now to be the second pick in the NFL draft, according to DraftKings. And that brings us to Mel Kiper talking about, could the Texans possibly pass up on a quarterback? Let's hear from Mel Kiper weighing in on that question if they may skip QB and go a different direction at number 2.
Not surprised based on what we've been hearing, Greeny, and he is a heck of a football player. And if they can, as Kimberly said, go from 12 up to 7 or 8 and get a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson, then they get the pass rusher and they get the quarterback. Buffalo went up from 12 to 7 to get Josh Allen. Chicago went up from 20 to 11 to get Justin Fields. It's happened a number of times over the years, tons of times. So again, if they want to try to attack it that way, the problem is if you deem a quarterback franchise material, then are you going to take that risk that you may end up without the quarterback and figure, okay, well, next year we'll get Caleb Williams or Drake May or Michael Penix Jr.? I don't think you can think that way. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Houston, if they don't take the quarterback at 2, what do they do? Do they come out of that first round with a quarterback, or do they miss on the quarterback because somebody else is more aggressive and goes up and gets them ahead of the Texans? That's going to be really fun to watch.
That point about if you're willing to trade from 12 to 7 to go and get Will Levis because you feel like he's worth trading back up to number 7 to get, if he's that important, then why would you pass up on him at number 2? Because the Cleveland Browns did not miss on their draft pick in 2017. They got Myles Garrett, who has been amazing in the NFL. But then they had to trade a bunch of picks and give guaranteed money for a quarterback because Myles Garrett ain't out there winning games at the quarterback position. Whereas if they took Patrick Mahomes and another random defensive end, I bet they're better than whatever the random quarterbacks they've had. And I know not random because Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick, buddy boy. Then they'd be better than what they have been. And you wouldn't have had to trade all of those picks for Deshaun Watson and give all of that guaranteed money to Deshaun Watson. You'd be giving a lot of money to Patrick Mahomes, and it'd be worth it. So to that point, it's like, well, are they going to be better with the defensive end and then trading back up and getting Will Levis? Well, why wouldn't you then take Will Levis at number 2? And then if you needed to trade back up for there being a defense, maybe Will Anderson's there, and you're like, oh my God, he wasn't expected to be here. We got our guy, but we didn't think he would be here. Or are you better off with Will Anderson and then giving up whatever resources are to get Will Levis, or taking Will Levis at number 2 if you feel like he's worthy of doing that, of trading back up to number 7 to get him, and then a lesser defensive end, a Tyree Wilson or a Van Ness or somebody else that might be there at number 12, or even trading back and getting something along those lines and getting a few more picks. Like, it makes no sense if you think that he's good enough to trade up 5 spots to get that, then you would pass on him and wait 5 spots later.
I know earlier in the show I said, like, you can only be so confident in your own evaluation, right? Like, being overly confident that you have all the answers is a good way to get yourself fired over the next 3 years. But if you have so little confidence in any of these quarterbacks that you've talked yourself out of your choice of quarterbacks 2 through 4 in this draft, I wonder how exactly the Texans find themselves in that sweet spot. Not here, but here. And if you're deeply in love with one of these defensive players, you do want to play the value game, but not at the cost of your quarterback. And again, if you don't know about any of these guys and you say, we're going to stand pat, we're going to take Will Anderson, we're going to wait for it to come to us with our second pick, we're going to take another defensive player, we'll get a weapon here, something that Caleb Williams will appreciate at this time next year, that's a strategy. Trading out of number 2 and saying, hey, you guys don't want to trade with the Cardinals? Don't even worry about it. You get quarterback number 2, whoever you want. Come get C.J. Stroud. We'll trade back. If you're trading back 4 spots with the Colts, you still might get Will Levis. Yeah. Or you will get your choice of C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson if it goes Young and Levis 1-2. There are a lot of ways you could maneuver out of the second spot that could be like logically consistent, and this does not seem like one of those options to me. It's bizarre.
It makes no sense. Also, the thought of, well, then if you want to get like a Caleb Williams or, you know, the other 2 quarterbacks that he mentioned, and now they're escaping my mind with some of the
next year's draft
class that are up there. If you want to get a Caleb Williams, or if you want to get and I can't remember who he said. I bring that up because, you know, last year at this time, if you'd have said, look, man, you want to lose and get Bryce Young, okay, going number 1. C.J. Stroud is there. The consensus number 3 overall quarterback at this time last year for the 2023 draft was Tyler Van Dyke.
Oof.
who is still at Miami.
Yeah.
The big news about Tyler Van Dyke is whether or not he was going to transfer to Alabama or Georgia or return to Miami. And a couple days ago, he decided he's returning to Miami. You know what he's not doing? Being drafted on Thursday.
Yep.
But last year at this time, he was a first-round draft pick. So if you sat there and went, you know what? If we don't end up with Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, like if we get one of those three, Young or Stroud or Van Dyke, boy, we're going to feel really good about that next year. Last year at this time, if you were thinking, if we can get this wide receiver in the draft in the first round, we'd feel awesome. The consensus number one wide receiver in the draft this time last year was Kayshon Boutte from LSU. The consensus number one, Jackson Smith and Jigba right behind him. Those were the two. 50-50, not bad. If you're shooting threes, 50% is awesome.
Great.
Hitting a baseball, 50% is great. Picking in the first round and getting somebody right, if you're picking in the top 10, 50%, not great. Kayshon Boutte is now the consensus number 17 overall wide receiver. So you have quarterback and wide receiver from a year ago that one is still in college and the other one is the 17th viewed overall, not player, wide receiver in the draft. I love Darnell Wright. I looked at Mel Kiper's way too early prospect rankings for the 2023 NFL draft. This was after the NFL draft last year, and Darnell Wright was not listed in his top 10 of tackles last year. He's probably the third, or some people think second best tackle in this draft. Some of these are right. Like, for instance, Mel Kiper's top 10 wide receivers. He had Jackson Smith and Jigba number 1, but he had Kayshon Boutte from LSU number 2, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, Quentin Johnston, Zay Flowers, Raheem Jarrett, Jermaine Burton, and then Marvin Mims and A.T. Perry. A few of them in there, you're like, no. Misses there. And some others are the same names we're talking about now. So it's not a perfect science. So that's why it wouldn't make sense to go, well, hold on, let's get this guy next year. You know, because if we can get Boutte, let's pass on wide receiver this year with this guy because we think we might have enough ammunition to go and get a guy like Boutte next year. Yeah, you do in the third round or fourth round. Or fifth round.
Feel free. Wait around.
Yeah, you can absolutely
great
get that
value
guy now. You know what else is great value? Mick Schaefer. He's next.
Kansas City's official home of the NFL Draft. Sports Radio 810 WHB, Kansas City.
Have you checked out Our Farm Distilling Company yet? Our Farm Distilling Company is a farm distillery located in Mound City, Missouri, overlooking the Missouri River bottom and rolling hills countryside. Enjoy tours, tastings, and cocktails made with their signature spirits like ginger spice.
days a week. For more information and to find a location near you, visit them online at greenlightdispensary.com. The Royals took 1 of 3 against the Angels in their series that concluded yesterday, being shut out 2-0 against a stupendous start from Shohei Ohtani on Friday and losing 4-3 yesterday with Ward, Trout, and Ohtani hitting back-to-back-to-back home runs. On Saturday, though, the Royals took the 11-8 victory with a 5-run ninth-inning rally. They're now 5-17 and begin a series with the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight with Brad Keller on the mound. For Sporting Kansas City, 1 goal from Johnny Russell was not enough. They fall 2-1 to New England. They remain the only winless team in the MLS. Coming up next in the Zone, we'll find out if Mick Schaefer got a win over the weekend. I'm Joshua Briscoe. This is SportsCenter.
Twitter thinks he's funny.
Shame on you nerds.
His wife and kids think he's lame.
No!
We couldn't get Paul, so we're stuck with Mick.
Yep. Okay, still got it going on.
Mick Schaefer on the Zone with Jason Anderson.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, 1 o'clock hour. Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports Director, joining us here in the Zone, heading up until 2 o'clock. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, and Drake. Mick, what's up, man?
Hey, guys.
How are you?
Draft has started.
Has it already started?
Started.
Yes.
It's draft week. It's
You're
Monday.
Mick is on the clock.
I'm on the clock.
That's right.
I've been on the clock since like 10 this morning.
Well, you get split shift.
Yeah. Split shift.
Yep. So you get to go home and sleep for a few hours,
That's
and then
not it at all.
Then you got to go up to work for a little bit. Then you can head back home and have dinner, and then you head back to work a little bit.
This is the first of 11 straight days.
11 straight days?
Yeah. Because I have to work all the way through the weekend.
Like a baseball team that has this.
That's it. Like
11 games coming up. Don't have an off day for 11 games.
Yeah. The amount of wins I'll catch, amount of W's I'll catch are probably equivalent to the Royals too.
Roughly the same.
Very
you know what they
similar.
got? They got one Saturday.
They did. I was
Take that, Anaheim.
we were at the lake and watching that, and I was like, really. I'm at the point now where it's easy. It's always been easy to take pot shots at the Royals. I was at the point like, okay, I feel for them. They need this. They needed to get that win, and now they go back to losing, which they did.
That's all it took.
I was
just the one win, and you're good.
Like, let's go. Come on.
Once they get the one win, everything else can just go to crap. As long as there's that one win, that's there. We will talk a lot of football, but as a quick aside, because I want to get to the tease from Josh Briscoe as to the betting favorite at who the number 2 pick is.
Been teasing you all day.
I know, right? For at least 15 minutes now. So they've got the cool Maximus helmet now that they broke out, the Gladiator helmet when they hit home runs.
Yeah.
So.
Tell me about this.
It's also definitely I don't know where MF Doom's helmet originated from. There's definitely an MF Doom element to it.
Sure, I'll take your word for it. So everybody does these cool things in the dugout now after you hit home runs, and now the Royals have the Gladiator helmet they put on their head.
So it's like this kind of like.
Yep, it looks like Maximus's helmet that he wears in Gladiator. So they put that on, and then in the Kansas City Star, Luca Evans had the story on the Royals from yesterday's game and about the Anaheim the Gladiator helmet. So he asks Bobby Witt, and I have not heard this. I cannot find sound of this, but Bobby Witt Jr. says that's kind of our mentality. Everyone against us. And if I could hear it and he's just joking like, it's kind of our mentality, everyone against us, sort of and a smile with his creepy mustache, then you'd be like, all right, he doesn't really.
I'm against the mustache.
I'm for the mustache, just to be clear.
No.
Mick and I on the same page.
Yes, he's
gross.
young. I couldn't grow a mustache like that. Maybe in a few years.
Yeah, you know what?
We can get kind of Tom Selleck level.
Maybe that's what he's going for. Maybe he's going for Mr. Baseball. That's
nowhere near it.
Full-on stash of Mr. Baseball. Well, hopefully he's never playing in Japan. Okay, hopefully he doesn't have to go there to keep his career alive. So I would like to hear it because just reading it, my initial thought, and it's probably colored by the fact that they're 5-17. My initial thought is, I don't really want the 22, 23-year-old on a team saying everyone's against us. And already having that sort of feel that, well, everybody's out to get to.
Isn't everybody on every team at every age, though, but is he, mentality?
But is he talking about, like, other teams? Well, they're all out together. They're trying to beat us, and we're glad here. We're in this ring, and we're against 29 other teams in Major League Baseball. Because Royals fans are not against them. Royals fans are very much in favor of them winning. They are rooting for them.
Yeah.
They want them to move. When they boo, it's not because they want you to fail. It's because they're frustrated that you are not succeeding. So Royals fans are not against you.
They might take that, though, as
Agreed.
these people booing. That's how I would take somebody booing me. And it happens quite a bit. Okay, that person's against me. I don't hear the boos and be like, you know what? They see something in me, okay?
So, like, at night when Dia's doing that?
That's true.
Boo!
She's like the toss between weather and sports.
I feel like she's against me here.
What's Dia going to say this time?
Oh, please be okay. Please be okay. Don't be too harsh cutting.
You can hear when I'm at home watching booing the TV. Like that, you guys do hear that,
It's a new
right?
technology we've
Okay, good.
developed.
Yeah. I throw things at the TV. You feel that? You
Yes.
what just hit me?
It's,
Like,
it's available on all the streaming services, cable boxes too.
Smart
if you have,
TV.
Yeah. You got the cord, but you could actually be more connected by doing that. Again, and maybe it's just drawing too much, and maybe it's just, again, the backdrop of a team 5-17. It's just concerning if you're a young guy who has played 160 games in Major League Baseball, and the other young guys on this team, everyone's out to get us. Everyone's against us.
And that's a young guy thing to do, right? He's
Could be, yeah.
basically college aged.
Yeah.
And we saw really good teams like Georgia say nobody believed in
Yes.
you. Actually, everybody did. We
Kelsey,
took a poll.
not-
Every single person believed in you.
Kelsey, not nan one of y'all picked us to win the Super
They're
Bowl.
humans like us. I mean, you hear 99 positive things about you, and the one negative just sticks in your craw. Right?
99 problems, but a win isn't one.
That's all I'm thinking about is that one person who hates me.
That is right. You know,
Right? That's how it works.
You are exactly right about that. You get 100, you get 99 compliments, and one person that says something bad. You're like, should I change everything for that one person?
Should I change my entire life for this Twitter user?
Switch everything up for this one person that doesn't completely agree with the show, but listens,
Yeah.
but just doesn't. I think
Should
probably
I throw it
yeah.
all away for John Boy 69? Maybe I should.
Willing to risk everything for John Boy 69.
At John Boy 69.
So, Josh has been teasing us with the number 2
segue.
pick in the draft.
Yeah, I don't know who it's going to be. It's going to surprise me.
He said we're going to be shocked. Okay.
Did I say shocked?
You said shocked. It will shock you.
It's-
It will shock you. So, the heavy favorite is that Bryce Young is going number 1. That's
right.
the expectation. So the draft is going to start at 2. There is now talk about the Texans not going quarterback and like Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson or somebody else. So
Jalen Carter was going to be the first defensive player taken
For a
as
while.
of 3 months ago,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
For the wreck.
Yes.
C.J. Stroud was right there neck and neck for the number 1 spot until a couple weeks ago. Anthony
He had a
Richardson
bad game.
devastating. Terrible performance in
awful.
mid-February.
Yeah, that February 18th performance really knocked him down.
So right now, not only is the number 1 odds-on favorite to be the number 2 overall pick on DraftKings, surprising to me,
Number
but
1 favorite to be the
the
number
the top
2.
favorite to be the number 2 overall pick,
Okay.
but the second favorite to be the number 2 overall pick. Both of these I would have laughed out loud at 1 week ago. Because the favorite at minus 135 to be the number 2
Can we
overall
guess?
pick on Thursday, I think you will guess it with the context, but absolutely.
Anthony Richardson.
Mick, are you looking at my screen?
No. Levis.
Minus 135, number 2 overall, Will Levis.
Good.
Number
Good for them.
second-
Actually, you know what? I want the Raiders to take Will
You know
Levis.
what? That assures you of picking high in the draft again
You know,
next year.
It's just
okay, Houston.
chestnut checkers.
Oh,
You
they
take-
are still trying to get Caleb Williams.
Take Will
Yes.
Levis.
That's it.
So you can
Wow.
get Caleb Williams
2
next
quarterbacks to get 1.
Kind of like Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray.
Number 2, to be number 2, Tyree Wilson plus 230. Will Anderson is plus 350. C.J. Stroud is plus 350. Anthony Richardson is plus 1,400. Jalen Carter's plus 3,000. Bryce Young's actually plus 2,000 because there's hedging, I guess, to say, maybe something crazy happens at 1. But he is huge favorite to go 1.
Wow.
What did Will Levis do in the last 3 weeks? Why is his stock moved from the 4th of 4 quarterbacks to number 2 overall?
It's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If the Texans are looking at it and saying whatever it is about Will Levis that they think they can hone it. Look, the guy is built like Adonis. He can throw the ball over the mountains.
Whatever it is about Will Levis that has him stand out in the eyes of the Houston Texans.
But some of the issues
Could be anything.
Some of the issues with Will Levis are accuracy, also sometimes his ability to make decisions quickly and process information. And they don't know if he can layer passes to the second level and third level, whereas he just tries to throw it through guys, like right through the chest to get to, you're going to go through the linebacker's chest so you can get to the next level of receiver who's in front of the safety. Now, the linebacker unfortunately passed away, but it was a
Now
reception.
It's 11 on 10.
But it was a reception. And so that's one of the ways he may be looking. So those are issues. If you think they're correctable, you've got a big-bodied guy who's athletic enough to run the football when need be, kind of like a Patrick Mahomes type, not a Lamar Jackson, but a Patrick Mahomes type who has an amazing arm that can make every throw on the field. He reminds me of Jeff George a lot, that he's just going to be out there throwing the ball all over the place, and his arm is going to be something that's kissed from God, and people will continue to believe in him because you can't really find too many guys with an arm like that and who's built like that. But I wouldn't take him.
I would be surprised at this point if he had a Jeff George level career.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people would be like,
for a while. Yeah, he started a lot of years. Yeah,
a lot of people like, you know what, you would take Jeff George sometimes, but I'm not taking him at number 2, especially like I think Anthony Richardson. Like my number 2 quarterback would be Anthony Richardson.
Everything that you just said about Will Levis could also be applied to Anthony Richardson,
absolutely.
except for he's bigger and stronger and faster. And
except for I think Anthony Richardson, if he hits, is a level above Will Levis that could be like, this guy is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
An absolute force.
But he could also completely flame out. And if that happens, then I'm fine with it because then I can go and try to pick the quarterback again.
Absolutely.
I don't want Kirk Cousins.
But that's you in the owner's mindset, not in the mindset of a GM trying to keep his job. That's the one very vague pushback.
That's me in like a fan's mindset.
Absolutely.
The owner's mindset might also be, hey, Kirk Cousins isn't bad because we're selling out games.
Good point.
You know,
good point.
Every year we're picked to finish first or second in the North, and we're going to the playoffs, and we're getting extra revenue because we're getting a home game or whatever it might be in the playoffs. We'd like to win a Super Bowl. Blah 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 blah. Fan standpoint, it would suck to then be picking at the top of the draft again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather be in that position than picking 19th every year.
And the Texans just rolled with Davis Mills last year. Like they are willing to put their fans through a rough season to not get the number 1 pick because Davis Mills' superhero moment came at the wrong time.
I think especially for this year, you got 4 quarterbacks, 3 from the SEC, right? 1 from the Big Ten, from Ohio State. They have played the highest level of college competition already, to where like, okay, in a few years, all those guys that those guys played against, or a lot of them, are going to be in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Because that league churns it out. Same with Ohio State, Big Ten, all that stuff. To where, like, I really feel like just kind of going with chalk of how they performed on the field. To where, like, okay, you're Levis and Richardson. Well, I mean, guys like Stetson Bennett were better in college against the same kind of competition, right, than you. To where, like, okay, if they're from a small school or something like that, and you haven't really seen them against big-time competition, they put up huge numbers, and that's still a mystery. I think that a lot of it is not a mystery with these guys. Okay, we've seen what they can do and can't do with these, superhuman strengths almost, and, their size and all that, and it's, it hasn't been overwhelming at times.
But the other thing, too, is that, we're starting to see, while we're seeing a higher quantity of quality receivers enter the NFL from years of like, hey, best athlete on the field, put him at quarterback. Well, now best athlete on the field, put him at wide receiver. We got other guys that are going through 7-on-7 and going through quarterback camps to specifically be a quarterback. I think you're also, because of some of the specialized sports and specialized positions younger, I think you're getting more and more with guys that do have the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, just arms that somebody can throw it through, throw it over the mountains, can make every throw on the field. You're getting more of those. So I do think, as opposed to maybe 10, 15 years ago, an arm like Will Levis, to where it's like his arm is so strong. It's like, yeah, we're seeing a lot of those guys now. It doesn't stand out above the rest to where Boy, if you can get a guy that can be rolling to his right and throw back to his left 35 yards down the field on a line, I mean, that's something you just don't find, except for you're finding it with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Anthony Richardson and, some Justin Herbert has an incredibly strong arm. Like, you're seeing that more and more in the NFL, where it used to be like, is he accurate? Does he make good decisions? Now, is he accurate, make good decisions? And can he throw it 95 miles an hour off a mound? That's the question. Can he do that? So I don't even know, like, why don't we ever look at miles per hour and speed for throwing a football? Like we do a baseball.
65 is the, I want to say that's.
Really?
That's borderline like terminal velocity for football, right? I mean, that's like a Mahomes range.
I remember
at
one point they said, like, I think I read an article that Tom Brady threw those football 65 miles an hour.
Okay.
This was years ago.
Okay, so 85 for Mahomes.
For Mahomes, yes, absolutely. No, I bet Mahomes is close to 70-ish.
Okay.
Would be my
I'm
guess.
on it.
Yeah, you're on it right here.
I think in today's NFL now, with how strong quarterbacks' arms are, I think we kind of need to start separating between, this guy's got a really strong arm. Yeah, a lot of them do now. No, this guy's got a ridiculously strong arm. Like, what's the Mahomes level versus, like, Josh Allen? Versus, like, I think Josh Allen, has been graded out as maybe having a stronger arm than Mahomes.
Alex Smith showed up here and threw a football. We'd be like, oh my God! But in
comparison, they did that bit. They did that bit. I think it was the Dan Patrick show years and years and years ago. Because one of them had said something about Alex Smith not being able to throw the ball very hard. So he came in and threw the football, and it was like he was fearing for his life.
Yeah,
understandably.
You can hear it whizzing by your head, like when you get into a baseball game and the ball's going a little bit too fast for your comfort. When you can hear that, you've probably surpassed what my level of. I've Peter Principled here in sports. No longer going to be playing this sport right now. I can hear the ball make an actual noise as it's getting closer. Yeah, NFL quarterbacks are going to do that.
So Mahomes here pre-draft was clocked at 62 miles an hour. There was a sports science with Drew Brees where it looked like he got to the somewhere in the 50s. Oh, I had one more.
So that's
for
it.
you
So
here.
65s.
Josh Allen has thrown 62 miles per hour in a game. Mahomes has thrown over 60 miles an hour as well. Yeah. So we are hovering right around 60 being about as hard as even Mahomes can throw it.
So if Josh Allen and Mahomes are sitting around 62, then that's kind of the baseline of guys entering the NFL, how fast they can throw a football. Because I would like to start differentiating between, like, Will Levis has a strong arm. This guy has a rocket. And Anthony Richardson, just watch him throw the football. It's ridiculous. And Mahomes and Josh Allen.
It's got to be one of the easier things to measure on the field. I mean, if we can measure, like, Tyreek Hill's top speed after a catch, we can certainly have a gun on a guy's throw.
I mean, you got guys sitting in the 7th row with a radar gun for somebody who's pitching on the mound at a baseball game. I think you could do that from the sideline to see how fast the ball is going.
Part of the difference is, the percentage of time a pitcher is throwing as hard as he can in a game is pretty high, right? For a football player, for a quarterback, how often? Not very, probably.
That's true.
Is he throwing it, rearing back and throwing it as hard as he can?
Yeah, that's a little swing pass. Mahomes swing pass to McKinnon. He threw it like 35 miles an hour. Let's stop with how fast Mahomes can throw a football. Okay, that was 35 clocked in. It was a changeup. Okay, he threw the changeup.
I'd say, you need all pitches if you're going to be an NFL quarterback.
Yes.
In this one, this sports science episode with Drew Brees, I love this rabbit hole we've gone down. He wasn't going for top speed, but it looks like he was going for accuracy, and he was throwing those at 52 miles an hour. And Drew Brees is not like famously, and I don't know what year this would have been in, but I'm guessing it's late enough. 2010. He was still relatively close to the prime then, but yeah, 50 to 60 miles an hour feels like near the high end of the sweet spot.
So some of those websites that you just like search something in general and it comes up, like this happens a lot when it's like you search somebody net worth and then you click on it and it'd be like, he played sports ball as a 7-year-old and then made $700 billion gazillion dollars. That's his net worth. So I clicked on just a general quarterback speed throwing a football, just a general. This is the first thing that pops up. What is the fastest football thrown? And here's the first line. Patrick Mahomes set a new NFL draft record with 60 miles per hour in the 40-yard dash at this year's scouting combine.
That would be a record. That would be a record. It'd be 3 times faster than anybody could run.
Sneaky athletic.
You know what? I'm not going to take this website's word for it on what the fast throws are. That is totally one of those. What's the net worth? He played sports ball as a 12-year-old and then started this company and sold it for $700 gazillion.
That would be, I mean that's like a 1.740. I don't know, something like that. 1.540.
60 miles an hour.
All right, hold on now. Is
Set
that
the record.
If you were building a fictional football player, you got to get a number 1 overall draft pick. Is there a better trait you could give than he runs 60 miles per hour?
I don't think there's anything better.
I think. I mean, if he's
dragon
built
type
like
speed,
dragon-esque.
Dragon football type speed.
You're probably not gonna make him your quarterback, but I don't know. I mean, you gotta beat him to the edge. That's gonna be tough to do. He's basically riding a motorcycle. It depends on his acceleration, I guess, though.
So this is an actual website that was talking about different records. So Sports Science, or Next Gen Stats, went to the Jets training camp before in 2022 to specifically measure Zach Wilson throwing the football. So not throwing, but like clocking it, like
He's
sitting
not
back.
thought of as a big arm, is he?
He was the Mormon Mahomes?
Mormon
is what people called him
Mahomes
last year.
I don't think he's as big as Mahomes.
So this is not like in a game you're just throwing
Ask
a football
his
to a
wife-
guy
his,
to the right.
mom's friend.
I was waiting on a mom joke just after whatever Jason says here. So
I
there's
was-
yours.
I was going to get there.
All right. Oh, well, hey, congratulations, man.
Not like in a game where you're just throwing the football down the sideline. It's like, oh, he threw it 59 miles an hour. So they clocked him at just stepping up and just throwing a football as hard as he can. And he was clocked at throwing 69 miles an hour.
Oh, nice.
There it is. No, he wasn't.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's not true.
The Cougar was clocked at 69. The fastest any quarterback has been measured, according to Next Gen Stats. But they went there specifically to measure how fast he could throw it. So, hey, let's set this up. Let's get a receiver or a net over there, and you just throw the football as hard as you can.
Because
I would like to see like Wilson, or not Wilson, but Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and other players just to get an idea.
most of the time in a game when you're throwing at your hardest, you're throwing a deep ball, right?
Yeah.
And it's
But you're
launch
also
angle
putting
going
some
up.
loft on it,
right?
too,
Yeah, you're
right.
fighting gravity at that point. So
Yeah.
if you actually want to go for speed and you want to kind of throw it like a pitcher does, and it ends up it's kind of downward plane, then that's not. You rarely make that throw in a game.
Well, what would be great is if like you could set it up like 60 feet 6 inches. So really have a great comparison of this is how fast he throws a football, and this is how fast this person is throwing. They're on a mound.
You
and so
made
it's a little
you
bit-
made sure it coming right out of the hand though, right? Isn't that where you put the
don't
gun
know.
at? I think because that's the
no idea.
fastest the projectile is going
Is
to
it
be
really?
right when it leaves the hand. Yes,
That makes sense. I never thought about that. But that does make sense.
it does not accelerate at all once it leaves your.
I sat right next to the Missouri dugout when they played Kansas at T-Bones Park a long time ago, and Max Scherzer was on the mound for Mizzou. And I'm telling you, that thing got almost to the plate and then zip and
faster.
almost sped up. It was unbelievable what that looked like. With obviously it was.
Was it rising too?
Dude, it was absurd. I mean, it was optical illusion, right? It didn't actually just like speed up. But that's what the fastball looked like. Is it almost got there? It almost looked like it skipped a little faster. And my brother and nephew were like, I guess that's what different looks like. That's what.
Were they
different-
pointing at his eyes?
Yes, they did. Different
That's
eyes.
what
different eyes. Well, that's what the ball got almost there at with the blue eye, and then right at the end,
He
boom,
winked.
brown eye.
He winked at it and
Winked with the brown eye.
Damn it! I should have gone blue instead of brown and then blue. Darn it. So yeah, his fastball actually speeds up. Yeah, that's it breaks all time space rules that are out there. Velocity rules, it's all broken. So we know Zach Wilson clocked at 69.
It's nice for the Jets to schedule Bring Your Mom to Work Day
at training camp
for Zach Wilson's big sports science moment.
Good for him. Good for him. Again, this is the next level. We need to see these things. I need to know if Will Levis has that. Does he have a stronger arm than Zach Wilson? I hope. I don't know. Still wouldn't take him at number 2. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. Learned funniest best. I learned Zach Wilson threw the ball 69 miles an hour one time. We'll get to the funniest, which could also be that, and the best, also
Could be
that. More next.
Nick Schaefer's brought to you by Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon. As seen on Food Network, Diners, Drive-In.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Mick Schaefer hanging out with us here in the 1 o'clock hour, heading up until 2 o'clock. Program with Soren Petro comes your way at 2 o'clock. The Zone presented by Google Fiber, award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts, or hidden fees. We go around the room in a little thing we like to call Learn Funniest and Best. And that is presented by Pyramid Roofing. For a free estimate, 816-966-1101. You can check them out, pyramidroofingkc.com. Roofing, gutters, gutter guards, whatever you need there. You want to make sure everything is taken care of as the storms in the spring come through. Pyramid Roofing. All right, let's get into Learn Funniest Best. We go around the room. What we learned from the weekend, funniest from the weekend, and best from the weekend. So what I learned from the weekend, and I already knew this, but it just continues to get driven home more and more as the years pass and something like this happens. So Steph Curry calls a timeout yesterday, and they don't have a timeout, and almost cost them the game. What I learned is that you can be the high school player of the year, freshman player of the year, an All-American, the number 1 overall pick, Rookie of the Year in the NBA, All-NBA player, a 5-time All-Star. You can lead the league in rebounds multiple times. You can average 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 assists per game in a 15-year career. You can be an overtime Game 7 away from winning an NBA title for Sacramento. But you can also always be known for calling a timeout in a championship game when you didn't have one when you were 20 years old. And Chris Webber.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yes. That Steph Curry called the timeout, and Chris Webber was trending yesterday.
Unbelievable.
He did so much in his career, yet it is the timeout that was called when he was 20 years old.
It would have been better had they called a traveling on him in that situation, which they should have.
It would have saved him the Chris Webber.
Yes, he just walked, right? Okay, you just walked.
Yeah, it would have saved Chris Webber going, enough! I was 20. I couldn't even drink. I called a timeout. Yes, I'm sorry. He did all of that.
Patrick Mahomes didn't know at the end of the AFC Championship
That's right.
game.
What if they gave the Chiefs a technical?
I know, right?
Technical foul. It's going to be 5 yards, and they do get to kick a field goal from the 50. That's the technical foul. You get one free goal.
That is maybe a rule that I wouldn't mind if they went back and reassess. Like, do you really? Is it just by trying to call a timeout, do they deserve a technical foul?
A technical foul, yeah.
I'm good either way.
But I just it's reinforcing again that he will always be, no matter what, most known for simply calling. Even people that didn't even see it, that weren't alive, like Chris Webber, Steph Curry pulled Chris Webber. You're 5 years old. All right, what'd you learn there, Josh?
I learned that following his outing Friday night, batters facing Shohei Ohtani for the 3rd time in a game this season. Historically, the time where pitchers, we talked for years about getting pitchers out before their 3rd time through the order, because that's when the batters are really supposed to have an advantage in that 3rd pass. Batters facing Shohei Ohtani for the 3rd time in a game this season are 0 for 24 with 15 strikeouts.
Wow.
Many of those were assisted by the Royals in that in that game on Friday, but 0 for 24. I think did he walk Nicky Lopez? Not an at bat, not a hit. So 0 for 24. A truly staggering line for a guy whose main job isn't even pitching. Unfathomable. One of the greatest things we've ever seen.
Or maybe his main job is pitching, and he's awesome at the plate, and you're like, he's doing all this for a guy whose main job isn't even hitting.
It's unfathomable.
Either one, he'd be an MVP candidate.
Could he throw it 70 miles an hour, you think? A football? If you got a Aroldis Chapman.
Not without a lot of practice, would be my guess.
There's a
you
way
gotta
to
really
throw
get
it right there.
I also he walked Nicky Lopez. That would have been the last batter the 2nd time through the order. And then he struck out Jackie Bradley Jr. and struck out Bobby Witt and struck out MJ Melendez and then struck out Vinny Pasquantino and then struck out Salvador Perez and then struck out Michael Massey and then left the game.
Oh.
6 strikeouts in the 3rd time through the order against the Royals in particular.
I really liked the Ohtani 7 or more strikeouts in that game. We talked about it on the air. I really liked Ohtani for 7 or more strikeouts. He got to 11.
Yeah, so his
strikeouts go to 11. So
they certainly do.
Mick, what'd you learn this weekend?
I learned that the city of Kyle, Texas, is inviting all Kyles, any and all Kyles, to come to their Kyle Fair, May 19th through the 21st. They're going to set a record for most people having the same name in one place. And the organizer, events manager Claudia Roca, said, in order to break this record, we're calling for any and all Kyles. We need tall Kyles, short Kyles, young Kyles, and old Kyles to get close to the record set 5 years ago. This is Kyle's fourth try to break the record. Right now, the record belongs to some city in Bosnia-Herzegovina who saw 2,325 people named.
Kyle.
Ivan.
Wow.
In July 30th, 2017. And so they need to get more than 23, 25. That many Kyles.
All right.
So if you got a lot of Kyle buddies, text them right now. It's like, hey, what are you doing in a couple weeks? Should go to this city's right outside of San Antonio.
So what's the number again?
2,325 Ivans.
You know who would break the record? And they would just need one person to say, come here, meet me, free autographs. Tyler, Texas.
Yep.
Everybody named Tyler gets there, and Patrick Mahomes just say, we're going to break the record in Tyler, Texas.
If
come here, we're going to be giving out autographs and hanging out. You get to hang out as long as your name's Tyler.
You got to show ID at
your
the
name is
door.
Tyler.
Well, and here's the deal.
Record.
The name of the town doesn't matter, right? This town here was named Kapreshki Koshi, so there's no Ivan in the title. But it does make it more fun if it's Tyler or Kyle or whatever.
Like when the town in Montana changed the name to Joe. So get as many people named Joe Montana.
I feel like
get there.
Yeah,
Can you get 2,500 Joe Montanas there?
Couldn't you just hold it in New York and say, hey, all the Joes, come to Central Park?
I would think there's a way to do this
You would break
easier.
it in half an hour.
I feel like wouldn't Manhattan kind of have at least 3,300 people with the same names?
But I think they all have to be maybe congregated together in like a
They
space.
They have to congregate in the name of congregating in the name of names.
Yes.
It's all sort of Ouroboros.
It's on an entire street named Wall.
Ooh, we gotta get a street.
All right, Drake, what did you learn this weekend?
I learned that Le'Veon Bell retired from the NFL. I thought that happened a long time ago.
How about that?
I knew he had tried out boxing last year, and so I thought that meant he had retired from the NFL, but he made it official over the weekend, so congrats, Le'Veon.
So did he sign a one-day contract with the Jets, or?
I think he's going to sign a one-day contract with the Chiefs, actually.
He'll never play for Andy Reid again.
Maybe with Washington, just to go
though.
play for Eric. Sign with Eric Bieniemy.
About time.
Retire a Commander.
That's right. All right, funniest. We start with you, Josh.
Twitter.
Okay.
Twitter altogether. Specifically, I think the funniest.
The blue check marks. And
yeah,
everything?
it was just the specific battle between Drill, longtime fixture of a very weird corner of the internet, just perpetually changing his name to try to get the blue check mark to go away. Just all of the memes and chaos that sparked for a couple days were the funniest thing of the weekend for me.
Awesome. Mick?
Mine's gone also now,
Mine's
which I'm
gone. Some people got to keep theirs.
If you haven't, well, this is where it fringes between funny and over-explaining. But it was originally wiped out everyone who wasn't paying for Twitter Blue, and then nobody was buying Twitter Blue, so everyone with 1 million or more followers got their blue check marks back, and it says they got their check marks because they had confirmed their phone number and subscribed to Twitter Blue, which included people like Bob Saget and several other celebrities who are no longer with us. Norm Macdonald subscribed to Twitter Blue and verified his phone number yesterday, apparently.
Oh, well, you know
Some
what?
big news there.
How do you know they didn't use a seance?
I just can't rule that out.
See?
So there's certainly a chance.
Yeah. It's, can you confirm that?
I can't. I've got a Ouija board at home. I'll work on it.
Let's figure it out. That's interesting. I never had the blue check mark, so I'm not missing anything. So
now
people will
you
just have to keep guessing if it's me or not.
That's right. Congratulations, I think.
Yes, thank you. Mick, what was the funniest for you?
So this is sent to me by my dad. It was really funny. Did you see the guy at the Yankees game this weekend? He dropped 3 foul balls.
Oh, no.
He's wearing like this, just this businessman's dress shirt, whatever. And so one's a tough catch there, and then the other one's just right off his chest.
No.
And the funny thing is his attractive girlfriend, fiance, wife, whatever, next to him.
Oh, the face!
They even tried to toss him one, and it bounces up and hits him in the face.
So
and the
embarrassing.
comments under are hilarious. Half the people are like, she's divorcing him after this. This is the final straw. The other half are like, he can afford box seats to a Yankees game. Pretty sure she's going to still answer his calls, right? And then one guy was like, is he at a game or is he just doing everybody's taxes around him? Because he does not look like a baseball fan. And then one guy, the best one, was like, You all are clearly missing the point here. Many of us have gone to numerous games and not even get close to one foul ball. This guy dropped 3 in one game. There's no excuses.
That is true. There should not be any excuses for that. That was embarrassing. Embarrassing.
Where's the video of that? Like, what account had tweeted it? I want to just go make fun of this guy with everybody else.
Well,
you can't read that one, but that's
I'll
okay.
send that to you right now.
I'll figure it out.
I'll send
You can
it to
just
you right
send
now.
it my
I haven't
way.
seen it yet. Interesting. All right, the funniest for you, Drake.
I saw an interview over the weekend with Wade Boggs, and they said, "Did you really drink 100 beers on the cross-country flight?" And he said, "Well, no, it was 73. I got over 100 after the flight because I went out drinking once we got to California." And they said, "So were you just hugely hungover the next day?" And he said, "I went 2 for 3 against Mark Langston."
So good.
I don't think I could drink 100 cups of water in one day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a lot of fluid.
My actual funniest is not radio appropriate. It's a Twitter account that is just baseball sports
Yeah,
nut.
none of mine are ever radio appropriate.
Just go check it out. They asked New York Yankees players for a specific memory from Yankee Stadium that sticks out, and Mickey Mantle described in
the letter, yeah,
in detail in a letter of what happened under the bleachers with some lady that he had met in detail, and then signed it.
They traded baseball cards,
and then
or
turned that in. Okay. So that's that would be the funniest. But my other funniest is at Charlotte FC over the weekend. You know, sometimes they put the messages on the big boards of like, "Hey, we'd like to welcome this group and that group." There's an intern that is in some hot water because they had a little fun, but they accidentally posted it.
Oh, no.
So the messages were, welcome the David Hoffman Realty, welcome NCFC Boys Under 14, welcome the FC Atletico 2011 Parma, welcome hot soccer moms and their families.
That's fine.
That's great.
So that's pretty good.
Nothing's wrong with that.
Not bad. It could have been a whole lot worse, but just having a little fun and putting it up there and then accidentally hitting send. Oh, whoops. I didn't do it. That guy did it. So if you're going to have a mistake, it's actually kind of funny.
There was another cringy Jumbotron message. Maybe I don't think it was over the weekend. I think it was technically last week. That was.
Yeah.
I was afraid that was going to be.
It wouldn't count for me because it wasn't this weekend.
Absolutely.
I stick by the rules.
No, as you should.
What was your best from the weekend, Mick?
So Thursday or Friday, I was at work. And
your best was
Thursday.
that you had to work.
Yeah, that was it. And so I get a video, the first of many, from my wife. There was a baby fox was stuck down in our window well, and was just crying and it sounded like a dog, and they heard it forever, and they're like, I think this whatever this is a dog. They went out, it's dark, and the thing is so cute, right? And so they went down to try to save it, and my son he's got oven mitts on. And so he goes down with oven mitts to go get it. And I might have been the same way. He was too skittish. He couldn't grab it because it would get cornered, get scared and everything. And so the next time down, he came down with a board. Right, we're gonna have to run up the board, but it turns out they're not like circus animals. They don't know tricks and stuff like that.
What?
Yeah, so didn't know. And so then he read online that you for a wild animal you want to throw a towel over their head, and that disorients them enough to where you can just go and grab them. And then again, he couldn't. The thing was just running circles around him. He couldn't get the towel over his head, and so eventually, I'm like, this has gone on for 45 minutes, and so we have neighbors coming over, and so I'm texting. I text my neighbor, big fisherman. So they go and get a big old net. We're like, okay, we're gonna
right,
net.
Yeah, there you go.
And so by the time he gets over there, we have another neighbor who is pretty country. And he just goes down with some work gloves and grabs the fox. The fox doesn't try to bite him or anything, and he just holds it up like Simba style, Lion King style. I equated it to whenever they held up Winky at the end of Best in Show, right? And they're taking pictures and everything. Everybody around there taking pictures and video and all that stuff, and it almost looked like a terrier. And he set the fox down. Fox turned right around, took off to find its family, who apparently live under our neighbor's deck. So
really?
Yes.
What did the fox say?
Yeah, we made that joke. Damn it.
You know, it was the first time I had heard it, so
Yes. We had a family of.
I got video. I'll show you what the fox says.
We had family of foxes that lived next door, and then sometimes under our deck, and it was awesome. They were very nice.
Yes.
I'll tell you this: tomatoes were protected.
Yeah, hey!
No
There you go.
squirrels, Now, we did find some bones laying around from time to time.
Sure.
But you know what we didn't find? Half-eaten tomatoes.
You weren't going to eat those rabbits and squirrels. You want to eat the tomatoes.
Exactly. Well, the squirrels maybe. I don't know how hungry we get. I'm
Yeah,
not
fair.
really sure. I bet this guy that went down there and just grabbed the fox, I bet he's been noodling before. I bet he's gone
He
to
would
catfish
absolutely
noodling.
noodle.
He'd be one of those guys.
He would absolutely noodle.
Fox, let me get that. It's not a big deal. I have to show you a video of a coyote and a fox outside of our front door in the middle of the night that were getting ready to fight because the coyote was trying to get to the fox's babies to eat them.
Yeah.
And you will know what a fox says.
Yeah.
And it is an awful sound.
It's kind of like a baby, too. Kinda sounds like,
It sounds like an old lady screaming.
Yes.
Like it does. My wife and I were freaked out because we woke up in the middle of the night and all we just heard was like, like what the hell is going on?
We've actually had an old lady down in our window wells.
Right.
We didn't bother getting her. Like, there's a ladder.
Your son went down there with oven mitts.
Trying to throw a towel over.
Daddy, she smells. She's got crusty stuff in the side of her lip.
She did try to bite. You never know. The wild old lady animals, they could have rabies. They could have everything. The first video, my wife's walking up there with my daughter, and my wife's like, what if the parents come and kill us? And my daughter's like, oh no. And I was like, do you guys know what foxes are?
Yeah.
Do you know what foxes do? You really? I think they were joking, but I'm like, it's not probably a thing that you should have to worry about. You're good.
All right,
That's amazing.
that's the funniest and the best,
That's
and
a
also a
great
learned. What was the best for you, Drake?
I saw a Little League in New Jersey has finally found a way, I think, to deal with parents mistreating umpires. If you get kicked out of a game for berating an umpire and being a jerk, you cannot come back to another Little League game until you have umpired 3 games for that league.
I
like that.
love it.
That's awesome. That is a great idea. I like it a lot. That's awesome. Man, they should totally do that.
It's a really good idea.
Great rule.
Service time.
Yeah, my best is not nearly as good as your guys' best. My best was, the XFL over the weekend. The Houston Roughnecks were playing. Defensive line coach Bill Johnson. Not Johnson.
Not
I almost called him
Johnston.
Johnston.
You've almost put the T in the wrong spot.
Bill Johnson got hit on the sideline, and he was bleeding. Just blood was dripping down his face, and wasn't going to get it fixed. Didn't get it cleaned up. Didn't put a Band-Aid over it. Just the game. He's just got blood just dripping down his face, and he's just coaching on the sidelines.
Awesome. Football guy.
Defensive line coach in the XFL. You love football. You are a football guy. No, let it bleed. Let it bleed.
Let me bleed.
Okay, you kidding me? There you go. Learn Funniest Best, presented by Pyramid Roofing. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show. Coming up next.
Mick Schaefer in the Zone is brought to you by Atomic Cowboy Sports Saloon, home of the 2-story biscuit sandwiches.
Go to 810whb.com/auction.
Doing
and
it.
you can.
You mean everyone else?
Well, you go there too.
I'm here now.
Go.
810whb.com/auction.
Please go check it out. Because we've got this silent auction going on, and the proceeds go to benefit local charities around the Kansas City community. And 810whb.com/auction. The auction goes through the draft weekend, and you can go and place your bids on some of these awesome items that we have there at 810whb.com. We've mentioned a number of them already, but also there's a signed Bo Jackson picture. Some Willie Gay mini helmet, Bill Self National Champion poster signed. Well, a KU National Champion poster, but signed by Bill Self. That's pretty cool. George Brett autograph picture, pretty cool. And a number of other things as well, like Bushnell. There's also some experiences like at Nicholas Golf Course and sporting and other things that you can go and check that out. 810whb.com/auction. Again, that goes through the weekend. We'll continue to tell you about all the different things we've got going on this week. It'll be a packed week. It'll be a fun week. Pumped, getting one day closer to the draft being here in Kansas City, and so many things going on. You can pick up our NFL Draft Preview, Super Bowl Champions Collector's Edition magazine, available for free at all hen houses, Barstool Sportsbook at Hollywood Casino. The different remotes and locations we'll be at, so if you hear us on location somewhere, you can go and pick up this magazine, including Chicken and Pickle tonight, where Totally Offensive with Garrick Dieter and Anthony Sherman will be broadcasting their show tonight, a special Totally Offensive with Garrick Dieter and Sherm. The magazine will be there, Chicken and Pickles, where they're going to be broadcasting from. So the festivities kind of around here for 810 kind of kick off tonight.
And don't ever stop. We will be going all through the weekend. We're going to have a lot of things to celebrate, I think, in this beautiful city of ours. We're going to be at pretty much all of them. You're fine. One of us from 810 will be at every corner of Kansas City.
Yeah. It'll be Drake tonight.
Drake's performing?
Yes.
It's a big get.
Tomorrow,
Thought they would have announced him with Fall Out Boy.
Tomorrow, it's Lebo and his band from high school.
I don't like you. I don't like you. I don't like you.
Let's get them on the stage. I think that's a good idea. At least for a little sound check.
I feel like I can fill in for him like I had to do for Steve Perry.
Fallout Lee Boy.
I don't like you.
I get it. Same.
All right, the program, Sren Petro, Curtis Siebold, they come up next. Enjoy it. Keep it locked right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
The NFL Draft is almost here, Kansas City. Join Sports Radio 810 for the Path to the Draft online silent auction, a fundraising event benefiting those in need in the Kansas City community. Bid now for incredible signed sports memorabilia and more at 810whb.com/auction, featuring one-of-a-kind items like a Travis Kelce signed Super Bowl 57 football frame.